Okay, welcome to the second night of budget public hearings here in Northampton. This is a continuation of our budget hearing process. We will start with a roll call, and then we will move on to announce.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Councillor Davis.
Present.
Councillor Dobbs.
Here.
Councillor Clemmer.
Here.
Councillor Loisel.
Here.
Councillor Maori.
Here.
Councillor Nabad.
She's just coming in now.
Okay, I'll come back to her. Councillor Perry.
Here.
Councillor Robbins. Here you are. Councillor Stratton.
Present.
Okay, and coming back to Councillor Nabad. I haven't made her a co-host yet, so perhaps she.
Okay. Okay. I should have.
Okay, let me just make her a co-host. There we go. Councillor Nabad?
Present.
Okay,
Cool.
Council President, you have a quorum.
Excellent. Yes, and as usual, all people in the room and on Zoom are being audio and video recorded. So this is the FY 2027 budget hearing in accordance with our city charter, Northampton, Article 7, Section 4. The City Council will consider the proposed FY 2027 budget and hear all persons who wish to be heard. So like the previous budget hearing, each department will give a presentation, department head, and then we'll, during that time, if city councilors have clarifying questions, that's okay, but I would like substantive questions to be saved till after the public gets to speak. So then, after the department presentation is done, there will be a public comment testimony time where Councilor Loisel has graciously agreed to track questions. So all questions should be directed to the council from the public, and then we will direct them to the proper source. So, and after that public comment period, where the public can ask questions or make comments, then we will go to city councilors for questions and comments to the department. And the question and comments for the public should be 2 minutes, and you can speak to any part of the budget. I encourage you to speak to the department that is presenting at the time, but this is a public hearing, so but all questions do have to be related to the budget and comments. And a few other announcements. We are also holding a finance committee meeting at 9 p.m. or after. That's where we will be issuing a recommendation on the financial orders related to the budget. And I will be stepping out at some point for a brief time, and Vice President Clemmer will be presiding while I'm gone, and then Councilor Loisel will be promoted to Vice President. So tonight we're going to hear, I'm just going to tell the public who's presenting, and we'll hear from Fire and Rescue, the Police Department, DPW, Department of Public Works, Central Services, and the CAPA Department, and yeah, that's it. So that's a lot, and we welcome Fire and Rescue, Chief Helis. Thank you for being here. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing?
All right.
You all set, Charlie?
Yep.
Good. Good evening, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight regarding the Northampton Fire Rescue Department's proposed FY 2027 budget. The Northampton Fire Rescue Department remains committed to protecting the lives and property of our residents and visitors through fire suppression, advanced life support EMS, rescue operations, fire prevention, and public education. Every day, our personnel respond to emergencies that range from medical calls, structure fires, wildland fires, and technical rescue incidents. The demands placed on the department continues to grow, particularly on the EMS side of our operations. In 2025, the department responded to 9,240 calls for service. Of those calls, nearly 6,900 were EMS related. That means approximately 3 out of every 4 calls we respond to are medical emergencies. Those numbers clearly demonstrate that the Northampton Fire Rescue is not only a fire department, but also the city's primary emergency healthcare provider. The primary driver of the FY 2027 budget increase is due to personnel costs, with the addition of 8 new firefighters in 2026. These positions were added specifically to address increasing call volume, improve staffing reliability, reduce operational strain on existing personnel, and maintain a safe and effective emergency response capabilities throughout the city. Those additional personnel have already made a measurable operational impact. They have allowed us to consistently staff an additional ambulance. Prior to these staffing increases, maintaining ambulance coverage during periods of high call volume was increasingly difficult and often required reliance on mutual aid services and left the system strained during simultaneous emergencies. The added staffing has improved our ability to keep ambulances in service, reduce response times, and ensure citywide coverage remains intact even during peak demand periods. The proposed 2027 budget does not represent an expansion of services beyond what has already been implemented. Rather, it sustains the staffing model that we ensued last year and continue to meet the operational demands placed upon the department safely and effectively. The budget also supports continued training and professional development to maintain certifications, comply with state and national standards, and prepare our personnel for increasingly complex emergency incidents. In addition, the department will continue its commitment to community risk reduction initiatives, including the SAFE and Senior SAFE programs, which provide critical fire and life safety education to children, seniors, and vulnerable populations throughout Northampton. We understand the financial pressures facing the city and take our responsibility to manage taxpayers' resources seriously. This budget reflects a balance between fiscal responsibility and the operational realities of providing modern emergency services in a high-demand environment. On behalf of the members of the Northampton Fire Rescue, I thank you for your continued support of public safety and respectfully ask for your support for the 2027 budget.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, we're going to go to the public first, and then we'll go
Okay,
to...
so sit down and then,
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
But if you, stick around, but if you, that's fine to sit down, because we're going to do the public in a group and then tally the questions. So you don't have to get up and sit down after every question. So let me just see if there's any hands up anyone in the room. Let me just look at hands here. We may be able to go to counselors. Okay. I don't see any hands, so I'm going to go to counselors for questions and comments for the chief. I have some, and, oh, yeah, go, I see your hand, counselor. Oh, and yeah, I see Gwen.
You didn't get much of a break.
that's okay.
We just want you to walk back and forth because you don't get enough exercise all day with the ladders and stuff. Yeah, just a question. You said that 3 out of 4 responses are for medical emergencies. So it's medical only, not medical fire kind of combo.
So some of our medical calls, we have a dual response. So we have our fire engine responds with our ambulance, depending on the nature of the call. So the critical incidents, we will have fire engines responding with our ambulance.
And the people that don't call you, just the straight medical emergency people that don't call the fire department, who takes care of them?
As far as the,
Like if somebody needs an ambulance and they don't call the fire department, is it just everybody that has a medical emergency calls you guys?
they call 911 and it goes to us in the city of Northampton. We will respond to all medical emergencies in the city.
So there's no private ambulance or,
There's not in the city of Northampton.
okay. Okay, that was it. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. I see Counselor Nabad and then Counselor Stratton.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your amazing service to our city. I have two questions. And these are not necessarily about the budget per se. Well, one is. My first question is, what do you find are the peak demand periods? And then the second question is, if other cities are decreasing budgets to their fire and rescue, does that put more pressure on to the Northampton Fire Department, fire and rescue?
So as far as peak demands, and if I'm mistaken, you can let me know, but if you see the monthly reports I send out to you, I think it talks about peak times, and I think you'll see that there's no rhyme or reason as to peak times. We like to think that we can pinpoint when it's going to be more busier, but the reality is it's random. There's no set time where we can say, yeah, we're busiest during this time period or this day, or the weekends are busier than the weekdays. That's not the reality of the business at this point. So I would say that we can't pinpoint exactly when it's busiest. And the second question, can you repeat that, please?
So the second question was, if surrounding communities are cutting back on their fire and rescue budgets, how does that impact Northampton? Does it put more pressure on our department?
So certainly it has the potential to impacting our call volume as far as mutual aid goes. We have mutual aid agreements with local or area departments that we agree that if they're busy, we will come to them, and if we're busy, they come to us. The reality is if they're cutting and they're reducing their staffing, they're not going to be able to handle as much of the call volume as they are now, and that could potentially increase our workload. That answer your question?
Thank you so much.
Counselor Stratton, I see, would you mind waiting because a
I was
resident,
actually just about to suggest that. So
yeah, a resident arrived late and we were pretty quick with that comment period, so I would like to allow the resident, and then I'll go back to you. Okay. Okay, I see Dan Brindell. Let me see. Asked to unmute. Oh, you already did it. Okay. Dan, can you?
Yeah,
there
can
you
you
go.
hear me?
Yeah, let me see if I can, hold on, let me just see about your, see, now the start video isn't there. Let me go here to start your video. Okay, you should be able to start your video as well if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah. It's not,
Okay,
thank you.
and I'm gonna.
Honestly, this is a little bit of a question and a little bit of a comment. People are so impressed with everything that that this fire department does in terms of this sort of like medical intervention. I've been really impressed. A friend of mine actually delivered a child with the fire department, Northampton Fire Department, I think like right in the entryway of her house. So it's amazing. Their capabilities are spectacular. And my question, just jumping off that, is, you've spoken a little bit about increasing staffing in order to run another ambulance. Is there any equipment or anything that the more that you guys are taking on this sort of medical responsibility, any sort of equipment that you feel like you guys could use or that you don't have in some of these situations would be my only question. But yeah, the public is very impressed. We love our fire department.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. You could go ahead and answer it since it's just one question.
What's that?
Yeah, feel
Go ahead
free to answer if you'd like.
Should I wait?
No, it's okay, yeah. We do that when we have a lot of questions, then we stack them, but there's no need to do that.
Right.
So,
I'll have Division Chief of EMS speak on that. I feel like we've been pretty proactive, and I feel like our department's pretty proactive with the purchasing of equipment. We like to be as progressive as possible, fitting within, obviously, the budget and the standards. But I'll have Division Chief Millen speak on specific items that we have or things that we're looking for in the future.
Great.
Hello. So the question was, what additional equipment are we going to need with that fourth ambulance? So in the past, we've always kept 2 ambulances in reserve. We've had, as we buy a new ambulance, we keep up to 5, and we rotate them down. So they're in the back line, so when one of the frontline pieces go out of service for maintenance or something breaks, we have something to take its place. As we're transitioning to 4, now instead of having 2 backups, we only have 1. And so that goes with the ambulances themselves, the cardiac monitors, and so on and so forth. So as we're moving forward, we have an ambulance that was in capital. I believe we started the purchase 2 years ago. So we should hopefully get that ambulance in the next year or so. The time frame for new ambulances and fire trucks has gotten a lot longer than it used to. So as we get that new ambulance, instead of trading in our oldest ambulance, the 5th ambulance, we would now keep it. So we would have 6 ambulances in total. 2 of them in reserve that are older, that shouldn't be run every day, but can be used as a backup just in case. And the same thing goes for the cardiac monitors. We kind of have them in the front line, then as they age and get closer to the manufacturer's recommended lifespan, we kind of slow down on their uses. That way there's less maintenance, less repairs that need to be done. So we'll slowly be building back that reserve, but right now we have the 1 full unit that is able to be put in service. So there's not a drastic cost up front right now. We'll just be maintaining things. So instead of trading the ambulance in and getting that cost back when we purchase the new one, we'll keep it. So there is a cost to it, but it's nothing substantial that I think is unmanageable moving forward. Does that answer the?
I think there was also a part about if there is any equipment
But wouldn't these be under capital improvement stuff that they requested?
that what they just mentioned.
What we're talking about. Is this under
Yeah, that's
capital
a good-
improvement? This is not what this is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We really haven't changed our plan for capital moving forward. We're just keeping stuff a little bit longer. As stuff's getting more and more expensive, an ambulance that used to cost $400,000 next year is going to be costing $500,000. So we're trying to do more with a little bit less and being more fiscally responsible. And instead of replacing them, we used to put in for 1 every 2 years. Now we move back to 3 years. And as they're getting more and more expensive, we'll be holding on to them for a little bit longer. And it'll increase the repair cost, but it's going to be less cost towards capital and such.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Perry. So I guess we'll go back to Councilor Stratton, and then I see Councilor Robbins.
Thank you. So actually, Councillor Nabad touched on what I was curious about, but I want to ask a little bit different variation of it. I believe there was a mention in here that the staffing would reduce our reliance on mutual aid. And, we talked about this a little bit at our tour earlier this year, but mutual aid is usually a no money changes hands. It's a neighborly exchange, shall we say. Are we starting to see an imbalance in that with other communities where we are, say, giving more than we're getting back?
We are.
Is that becoming problematic, or is it something to keep an eye on?
It's something that we're aware of, and we're in discussions with the mayor's office. And, we like things to be as mutual as possible. Realistically, that's not going to be feasible. Some departments is more mutual than others. At some point, if it doesn't become mutual, then that's when we can start having other discussions as far as what we should do moving forward.
And I know there was one of those discussions happening up in Franklin County between 2 communities that made the news, yeah. But hopefully we're not there yet. So my other question is maybe stepping back a little bit from the immediate topic of tonight. You mentioned that, Northampton Fire EMS is basically the city's primary emergency healthcare provider. And I don't want to, pin you down on a fraction, but I'm curious, would you have a sense how many of those calls are inherent emergencies and how many are an outcome of a healthcare environment where people aren't avoiding preventative care and they're sort of using the emergency room as their primary care and they're using you as their ride there? If we as a state were to get better about general, public health insurance or something, would that possibly reduce our call volume? Or is there any way you can sort of, in my sense, it's, 20% of them or something. I mean, I can't pin you to a number, but I'm just trying to sort of understand.
I know we do, I think Bill would have the ALS numbers, but I can just speak, broadly that since COVID, in my opinion, when people didn't want to get it, first of all, didn't want to go to the hospital, didn't want to, get into the medical field. So we lost that group of people for a couple of years where they became disinterested in healthcare. There was primary doctors that retired and nobody replaced them. So there's a lack of primary care providers all over the country, and that has created it next to impossible to get an appointment to see your primary care physician. So what do people do when they want to be seen? Because they can't get into a primary care, they call 911, and that's when we respond. I truly believe this started because of COVID, because we saw huge, after the initial scare of COVID, our numbers just drastically started going up. And it's kind of leveled off for the last 3 years. I'd say we're pretty close in numbers. If you look at the yearly numbers that I send out, that we're almost, the last 2 years were almost identical. So I feel like we've leveled off, knock on wood, that we're kind of going to maintain this, and hopefully at some point we can, the primary care physicians increase and it becomes easier for people to get care, be seen at a timely manner, because the reality is now if you try to make a doctor's appointment, sometimes you're a month out and people don't want to wait that long.
So that's actually very interesting, and that's not something that I had thought about, and it did come up here last time or something, that yes, we're in a provider desert, with a provider shortage. I was actually wondering about, people not having health insurance where they feel they can go. And maybe what you're saying is that it's actually more the provider problem than the health insurance problem. But that was what I was curious about.
And I'm sure it's both, without, for sure. As far as ALS calls, Bill, do you have the percentage of ALS to BLS?
It's about 53% ALS to 47
BLS.
So the ALS, the advanced life support, being somebody's having a heart attack or something, as opposed to
and then the BLS calls, which
more chronic health,
something like a twisted ankle or a mental health emergency, something like that.
All right, thank you. That's been very informative, and I'll have to think on that. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, and thanks for coming. It's really exciting to hear that you have staff that are being trained, who are EMS trained, and I know that was a huge need in the community, and I'm guessing that means that you don't have to send as often. You don't have to send fire trucks with the ambulances. Does that reduce that doubling up?
So we have a criteria that that's going to be consistent as far as the criteria of the call. So it's like all cardiac-related emergencies, just because of the amount of hands that were needed to take care of the patient effectively is more than 2. So whenever we have the opportunity, we for those ALS calls that are critical, we send the engine. And I would say, Bill, 60% of the time we're sending about.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, so probably, and I don't have the exact number, but I'd say probably 60% of the time the engine's responding with the ambulance. And that's specifically to assist the paramedics with patient care.
Okay, I had a couple other questions, and actually Councillor Stratton asked my question about the mutual aid, but I wanted to expand it a little bit to ask, we've looked at your monthly reports, which are really helpful, and thank you for getting those out, but it does sound as though you spend a lot of time in other towns and other areas. At what point would it trigger a more serious conversation with other towns that actually are benefiting from our services? It seems like we're kind of the epicenter You guys have created a really steady and reliable resource for other towns that are struggling to
Right.
provide those services on their own. But what would trigger really sitting down and saying, we need to have some equity in this?
So we've certainly sat down and discussed this pretty regularly. We're trying to see where certain things play out before we make a decision of how we're going to move forward. We certainly have plans in place that kind of plan A, if this happens, then we're going to potentially do this, and we'll have to sit down and discuss potential plans to make this more financially more beneficial for our department if we're going to be doing so much work and not getting the aid back mutually. So
it's in the,
without getting into
yeah, I get it.
exact details right
Okay.
now, but
Yeah.
there's certainly constant discussion going on between my staff, the mayor's office, as far as how to potentially move forward with the ever evolving and seems to be expanding problem of financial constraints in certain departments in our area and potential impact it's going to have with our department.
And I had one more question, which was around the call volume that dispatchers do from the Florence Fire Station, which I don't think gets reflected in your monthly report.
So it's the same department, and those are in the
Yeah.
monthly report. So all those calls on that monthly report that you see is from Florence and Northampton. So that's a combined,
Right.
report for the whole Northampton calls, for all of Northampton.
And if you disaggregated those, is there a percentage that you call on more than one of the other services? Is it geographically related or just readiness related? It's hard to understand what the utilization is of the Florence department.
So are you asking where Florence is utilized, or?
How often do you call on the staff that's based at the Florence
So
Fire
that's all
Department?
predetermined through our public safety dispatch. They have run cards, and they have, for every area, it pops up on their computer as far as who to send based off of geographical area.
So it
where
is
they are located.
geographically.
As much as possible, like certain calls, like alarm calls, fire calls, our whole department will respond. So the engine from Florence will respond to an alarm call in the center of Northampton for a fire alarm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just expand a little bit on the mutual aid. So, you know, obviously right now we're seeing surrounding communities having budgetary crises. But mutual aid is also something that sort of ebbs and flows. So, you know, yes, this is something that we talk about all the time. But, you know, there was a period of time when we didn't have our ladder truck where we were relying on other communities that had ladder trucks. So it ebbs and flows, and you know, we want to make sure there isn't an imbalance, but I think you have to look at it, you sometimes have to expand your view even farther, because there are certain situations where we've really needed to rely on other communities as well.
Correct.
I see Councilor Loizao.
Yeah, I have two questions. One is, does the DCC respond with any of your calls? I ask because when they were here, I thought I heard them say fire and police, but maybe I misheard that.
So I can't necessarily speak on that. They may respond to certain ones. Bill, do you know that?
Yes,
There's certain criteria where they will.
certain types of calls.
They can't hear you.
Sorry. So there's certain calls based off of the dispatchers run cards that would allow them, the DCC, to respond in place of us. So if there's no medical emergency.
In place of you, not in addition to you.
Currently, no, unfortunately. The way the Massachusetts laws are written, we would have to go to it. So unfortunately not. So there's a list of if this, then that, and if there's no medical emergencies, there's no threat of violence, then they would be able to respond to those calls in place of us.
Okay, thanks. And then my next question is, what's the retention like? Because I was of your department, because I just couldn't believe how much training goes into each firefighter.
Right.
And that's a big investment, and I'm just wondering what the.
It is a big investment, and that's a great question. I feel like we've been pretty good at retention as far as keeping personnel. I can't say that we've kept every one, but the majority of the personnel that we take on, I feel like they stay. I think it's a testament to the people we have. I think they have a good camaraderie, a good group of people, and I think people like working there.
Okay, I see Counselor. That's okay. That's fine. Oh, and then Counselor Perry. And well, actually, let's Counselor Perry and then Counselor Clemmer.
I'm still analog and hand raising. Thank you for your presentation. As I always say, I love taking tours, so thank you for the tour that we had. And there's going to be kind of a theme for a lot of my comments for this budget hearing. And one is that I've really learned that none of our departments are siloed, and you guys are working together. For instance, I learned at the Police Academy that you guys got a grant for, what is it, an FLIR thermal camera that you tossed on one of their drones that has been helping you out. So I'm wondering, which, by the way, I got to see the footage for the East Heaven fire.
Oh,
and
right.
It was really cool. But I'm wondering if there's any collaborations you're doing with other departments. I really have been enjoying the fact that you guys are working together to help.
Yeah, so I feel like we have a really good relationship with all departments. We work really closely just because of the nature of the work with the health department, the building department. We work tightly with them on a daily basis with our fire prevention office because a lot of what we do kind of overlaps. So we we have to do a lot of the same inspections. So we collaborate with with the building department quite frequently. Obviously, with the police department, we're responding daily with them. Public health, they inspect food trucks, and our prevention inspects food trucks. So I feel like schools, we are in the schools doing the fire drills, our SAFE program. So I feel like we have a good working relationship with a lot of the departments in the city. Senior services, we have a thing there next week, which will be great. So yeah, I feel like we work fairly well, and we work with a lot of the other departments consistently on a daily basis.
Yeah. And again, that stood out is that you guys got that grant. But it also brings me to something that the IT department talked about for some of their new platforms, which is the new dispatch platform. And I'm just wondering how you're feeling about the rollout on that.
Are you talking about Mark 43?
Yes, the Mark 43 CAD.
Yeah.
And
I think everybody's just I can speak just broadly on it the police department more specifically we'll be working with Mark 43. We use another platform for our inspections and our daily rosters and stuff, but we will certainly need Mark 43 as far as like integration with our medical transferring all our medical stuff. I know the people that are on that committee are a little bit frustrated with how Mark 43's been progressing, I would say. But as far as our department, it's not really affecting us as much as it's affecting the police department specifically and public safety dispatch.
so there's no like additional training you guys need or anything you guys.
Not at this, no.
That's what I was wondering. Thank you.
Yep.
So, would it make sense down the road if the medical call numbers keep increasing to just have a dedicated ambulance to take care of those calls so they wouldn't have to tie up the firefighters? Or is it just not?
So the way we have dedicated ambulances now.
But I mean, the people like just have a medic crew instead of a firefighter medic crew, or is that just not a thing here?
So that was there. There's very few departments that do that. There are a few that run just paramedic only personnel. Right now, I feel fiscally, it's having someone being able to do both is more beneficial than just having a person for fire and then a person for EMS. The way we have it now is they're able to fight a fire and they're able to be on an ambulance. So you're essentially getting they can do two things compared to just a paramedic being able to do one.
Thanks.
I'm going to ask some questions. Yeah. So I have a couple questions about the 8 firefighters, new firefighters. Are those roles filled, or are you?
We're in the process. So we're still 5 short, but we did hire an initial 9. I believe they're just recently went on shift and they're counting towards shift and everything. They went through all our training. We're actively working on trying to hire 5 to get my staffing level to full, because we were just short still, just through retirements and everything else. They're going through the process right now with the goal of starting them at the end of June, early July. Yeah. The 5 new ones that we're working on getting them in, yes.
And did those start off as grant funded and we lost the grant? And
we never received, so we applied for the grant and we weren't selected for the grant.
And is it one time? We can't reapply?
We could do it again, but the problem is we couldn't just apply it to people that are already working. The grant is for taking on increased staffing. So we would have to increase our staffing again and then take them in.
Yeah.
And then the city, after 3 years, I believe, absorbs the full cost of those employees if we were to use the grant.
The grant. So we didn't get that.
We did not.
So we're paying.
We waited. So for last year's budget, I don't know if you remember, it was budgeted for half of a year because we knew that the grant response was going to be coming out, I believe, in October. So we didn't fund. We determined that we were going to have the staffing whether we received the grant or not. So that my budget last year had those 8 people in it as of October. And we didn't receive the grant. The grant took a little bit longer the response of the grant. Once we found out we didn't, we started with the hiring process of the 8, and that takes time as far as getting PATs, physicals. They have to do an agility test, and it took longer. They didn't get started until February. So they're, happily I can say now they're on shift and they're working. It took a little bit longer to get that rolling.
Right, and was that number of 8, was that kind of just a needed amount, or was that?
Yeah, yes. So you could remember that we explained increasing a staffing of 1 or 2 really doesn't impact how we are going to handle calls. For the simple fact, an ambulance requires 2 people to respond. We have 4 different groups that handle calls 24 hours, 7 days a week. So we needed to add 2 personnel to each group in order to increase the apparatus being able to be put towards calls.
Yeah.
So that's how we determined we needed 2 for each shift.
Right. So that number was made not with the grant in mind, but within the need.
The need and then we applied for the 8 with the grant.
Yeah. Okay.
And unfortunately didn't receive.
Yeah.
So I addressed it briefly in my budget message. This is a federal grant.
Yeah.
So this is, as I said in the budget message, one of the indicators that we're not in a friendly environment.
No. I'm trying not to swear right now. So now I'm curious about how is it going with the recruiting of like EMS and paramedics? I remember that was kind of tough a few years ago. I'm just curious.
Right, and like I said, I think I said the same thing as far as COVID. People didn't want to get into the field, but I feel like I believe that it's getting better. I feel like we're getting better candidates that are applying, whereas before we would get almost nobody to apply and nobody was necessarily really quality candidates. We'd maybe get 1 or 2 as compared to this last time we hired 9, because there was another additional on top of that 8. And I feel like we've got really good candidates. So I feel like it could be, I'm cautiously optimistic that it could be turning and we're starting to get people interested in the field again.
Yeah. I mean, it's a stressful time. Might as well take a high-stress job, you know?
Right.
Already stressed out. So a couple of other comments and questions. One is in my ward is Ward 7, part of Florence and all of Leeds, and a lot of the folks on Leeds are not on city water, and they have concerns, and we've seen them play out. You know,
Right.
it's imperfect when there's a fire that's not like on the one on Kennedy Road where there may not be reserve water. If you could touch base about that, often the folks kind of feel like they're not getting their full service, or they're at least concerned that they aren't.
Right. Yeah, I mean, realistically, that's, it's certainly a concern. Not having sufficient water is certainly a challenge for any fire department. With that being said, we do certain trainings. We have a different run card for out of water district that gets tankers to our location with water. Now, is it as effective as a area that has hydrants? No, because like anything, it takes time. But I feel like we train to be as efficient as possible at fighting those fires. But realistically, it's not as easy fighting a fire with less water.
Okay. Thank you for your
Hopefully I answered that question.
candid answer. And finally, something I've been thinking about, and a resident sent an email about, as folks are struggling more financially because of the economy. I know, I didn't see it in the budget book, but there's been times when we've had programs for smoke alarms and smoke and carbon alarms for low-income folks that kind of subsidize them, because it's a big expense to replace every 10 years and to keep people safe. And now that people are feeling more a financial pinch, I'm just curious if is that something that we're plugged into or could get plugged into to help residents have those alarms and stay safe.
So currently the only thing we have as far as supplying smoke detectors and doing those inspections is for seniors. We currently do not have the funding to supply smoke detectors to low-income housing. We are required by law to do on any exchange or any transfer of a deed, so any sale of a house or anything, we are required to do a smoke detector inspection there, and there's a fee associated with that. But currently, to answer your question, no, we do not have anything set up for the low-income housing.
Yeah, or just low-income residents.
Residents.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Counselor. I'm
Can I
done with
just
my
ask a
question.
follow-up question on that? There is an account, a revolving account for fire monitor program, something or other. I thought that was for smoke detector support for the fire department. Does that ring a bell?
Was that the account that has very little money in it? Was it from the?
It was only like $25,000.
Ooh, 25,000.
Yeah.
What?
And that's off the top of my head. It rang in there.
I don't think it would be $25,000 though. Oh, it could be. That could be dispatch, and they're slowly phasing that out. But dispatch monitors fire alarms at certain businesses. So the businesses will pay a fee to Northampton Public Safety Dispatch in order to monitor their alarms. So that potentially what you're talking about, but I don't know for sure if it's nothing of the fire departments, I can tell you that.
And just to say, there used to be a lot more just state and federal programs for low-income folks for smoke alarms, and unfortunately, those seem to have taken a hit too. I'm done with my questions. Counselors, let me just make sure anyone on the counselors online. I think we may be done.
Okay.
Oh, what, the Counselor Stratton?
Just quick comment on that. If a low-income person owns their own home, then yes, they're responsible for the smoke detectors. I believe any rental tenant, the landlord is responsible for making sure that there's a current smoke detector.
Correct.
Yeah, good clarification. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very
Being
much.
here, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to be moving on to the police department and Chief Cartledge. Thank you.
What's up? Okay. Good evening, counselors. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm just going to go through my brief presentation with some updated statistics and information from the last year that I'm happy to speak about with you all. So some of the highlights from last year, Corey Robinson was promoted to the Captain of Operations and Alan Borowski was promoted to Captain of Administration. Our staff attended 5,575 professional development hours of training, including leadership, mental health crisis training, and impaired driving training. Officers investigated a wide range of financial, property, and violent crimes, including fraud, retail theft, motor vehicle crimes, harassment, vandalism, and other coordinated criminal activity. Investigations involved digital evidence analysis, search warrants, interstate coordination, community partnerships, and collaboration with outside agencies, resulting in multiple arrests and criminal charges. Our department participated in restorative justice program as an alternative to prosecution, and we referred 6 cases, all of which were accepted by the program. We continued our voluntary submission to the use of force data reporting to the FBI National Database. We provided open data on our website related to daily operations and department statistics. Our records department responded to 2,362 public records requests, which is up slightly from the previous year. If we look at call activity, we responded to 30,216 calls for service. That's about 2,200 from the previous year. Sometimes when officers are on calls and we don't have anybody available to send to a call, we created a officer stack so we can keep track of how many calls are not being sent immediately for police response. So we had 346 calls that were stacked, which, like I said, meaning we did not have an officer to send, resulting in a longer response time and officers unavailable for traffic enforcement and other enforcement activities. We had 605 arrests, 472 motor vehicle collisions. 421 of those were over $1,000 or with injury, which means you had to report it to your insurance company or to the RMV. We had 65 OUI liquor or drug cases where individuals were charged or arrested. Officers completed 2,731 offense reports. They wrote 3,084 motor vehicle citations. Our Detective Bureau investigated 280 cases with a 91% clearance rate. We responded to 918 mental health calls, and of those 592, the police responded alone.
Many of you know we have 2 co-responders, which are funded by a federal grant that are housed in our police department. They ride with our officers and go to calls with them. They also respond. Last year, they responded to 18 of the calls alone, and 308 of those, the police responded with a co-responder. So if we're looking at unavailable officers, when patrol officers are out due to on-duty injuries, family leave, military leave, or they're in field training, it creates shift vacancies that must be filled by other officers. So each shift has a minimum staffing for officer safety, public safety, and to be able to respond to the amount of calls that we receive here in Northampton. For the entire city, our minimum staffing is 4 police cruisers and 1 bike patrol or 1 walking beat down on Main Street here. So when people are out on leave or call out sick or in field training, we have to fill that shift with overtime. So from July 2025 to May of 2026, we average 8 police officers per month who are unavailable to fill shifts as shown in this chart. And as I said, we have minimum staffing levels that must be met for officer safety and the safety of the community, which are 1 supervisor, 4 patrol, 1 Main Street bike or walking, and 1 station officer who is stationed right at the front desk in the lobby there. Officer stack last year was 346 calls. This is down from the year last year by about 132. The next slide you can just see, so the yellow part is if there's an overtime and nobody takes it, we will force the junior officer to stay on the shift, meaning they're going to work probably 16 hours in a row. So there was a little forced overtime. Most of it was signed by officers. And then the next chart, you can just see the FY25 versus FY26 for the minimum staffing overtime. Where the blue line kind of spikes, we now have 5 officers out injured right now, and they've been out a fairly long time, so the shift overtime did increase at that point. On the next slide, these hours represent officers being held or forced in to cover shift to meet minimum staffing. We have 7 student officers in the Holyoke Police Academy and will be graduating July 31st. They will then complete a 5-month field training program and be ready to fill vacant positions by early 2027. We continue to advance student officers through the academy to address staffing vacancies and anticipate 3 student officers in the next academy class beginning September 21st. The student officer program, which the City Council graciously gave us, allows us to preemptively hire someone as a civilian, get them trained and up and running in our department, and then when there's a police officer vacancy, we can then plug them in and they're already hired. It takes so long for us to hire, just like the fire department, with interviews, PAT tests, physical, medical, psychological tests, that to be able to hire early and have someone in the pipeline for the next academy really helps us. What is a student officer? A student officer is a newly hired employee who's not a sworn officer, must be between the ages of 21 and 37, pass medical and physical ability tests. They are required to successfully complete 5 months of police academy training. After graduation, they'll spend 4 to 5 months in the field training program where they're with another officer. Once trained, they'll be able to fill anticipated vacancies, and having student officers does not increase the number of patrol officers. It simply allows us to start hiring and training early. Now we kind of switched what we do. We used to have people apply and then interview them and then send them to this physical fitness test. But we were losing a lot of people. So Captain Robinson actually came up with this, we should invite whoever, even if they haven't applied yet, to our physical agility test. We hold it usually at Williston and East Hampton. And if they pass that, we offer them an application and then interview them after that. So it's been really helpful. What I must say, our officers are well trained. They love working in Northampton. These are some of the things that we've heard from people who've interviewed with us and who are still with us. Northampton is a vibrant arts and cultural city with a bustling downtown, which offers a lot to residents and visitors. Our department is committed to the community, and we hear this so much from candidates. They really, people can apply to our department who have an associate's degree or 60 credits. Other departments, they have to go through civil service and other types of testing. So we're fortunate to be able to have people apply right online from our website, and then we can get them going in the process. Our department is accredited. We were the 6th in the state, and we've been accredited since 2002. Every 3 years, a team of assessors comes in and looks through our whole department from A to Z and critiques how we're doing things, and we have to comply with over 300 standards from the Massachusetts Police Accreditation Commission. We are up again this November, so if any counselors want to, I'll give you the dates. If you want to stop in, feel free to talk to the commission and the assessors there, and if you can ask questions or just see how we're doing. Our department, for the size of our department, we have so many specialty units. We have bike patrol, community liaison officers, crime scene officers, accident reconstruction, field training officers, DART officers, and along with other community engagement activities. Our officers are some of the best trained people who have left our agency just because they needed to move or wanted to go to a different department, can go to any other department and work flawlessly. So I'm proud of our officers. I'm proud of the training they get in the academy, and I'm proud of the field training program, which really teaches them after the academy how to become a Northampton police officer. This city is very unique, as we all know, and to mold someone from what they learn in the academy is a basic police officer. Our field training officers are top notch, and they really teach our new people how to police in Northampton and the right way to do it. So some of the other just things I wanted to mention that we do. We do the safety night at Big Y. These are just some of the photos. We do the trunk or treat at Smith College and the YMCA. We do the holiday toy drive and a food drive around Christmas. We participate in Santa's trains at Look Park, Sands for seniors. This year we brought back the movie night on our parking deck, which turned out very well. And I think we're going to try to do that every year. We invite families, put up the big screen, pick a movie, and serve popcorn. And, you know, we participate in any parades that we can. We also participate in the National Drug Take Back collection event at Smith Vocational. We do car seat installations. We participate in the Fall Safety Festival in Franklin County. Coffee with a Cop. I do my monthly chat with a chief. That's been very rewarding and helpful. Many of the counselors and community members have stopped by. I try to change it up, the location every month, and it's been good. Officers led educational programs at Safety Village and summer camps. We host once a year our Citizen Police Academy, which I invite you all to attend at some point if you'd like to. It's very educational. You'll learn a lot about what the police department does, and can also go on a ride-along at any point. We do Healthy Kids Day at the YMCA, and we joined with the Parks and Recreation Department to bring Unity community-based or basketball league nights to Northampton. It's essentially what we did last year, and I hope to continue this coming year with more community events and lead the department forward. So.
Okay, thanks, Chief. Let's see if we have, if you're on Zoom, residents, we've just heard from the Chief Cartledge, the police chief, and we're looking for any, before we go to counselors, any members of the public who would like to make a comment or ask a question, either in the room or on Zoom. All right, I will go to counselors. I see, I'm going to go to Counselor Nabad. Counselor Perry, do you have your hand? Yeah. Okay, Counselor Nabad, and then Counselor, yeah, and lots of counselors. But anyway, Counselor Nabad, and then Counselor Perry. We'll start there.
Yes. Chief Cartledge, thank you so much to the whole department for your service to our city. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the grant that involves serving people when you show up with CSO.
Sure. So the grant is through the Department of Mental Health, and part of the grant restrictions is that the co-responders are housed out of the police department. We've had it for several years now. We have 2 co-responders that work like alternative hours. So one works day shift, the other one works 3 to 11, or kind of an overlap shift. They're totally funded by this grant. Some of them will ride with an officer for the shift. You know, they look through the log and look for mental health calls to follow up on. If there's a mental health call that comes in when they're working, they're issued a radio. They can respond on their own, in their own vehicle. They can also hop in with an officer. They can ride with an officer all the shift if they want to. You know, some of the calls are dangerous, and so we kind of push for an officer to go with them. There's calls that they go to by themselves when they feel comfortable, and the person might not necessarily want an officer to be there for the call. But you know, I said the numbers. There's still quite a few mental health calls that, you know, we're going on. They're all trained clinicians, so they have the ability to Section 12 someone, which is an involuntary committal to the hospital, which the police also can do. So yeah, it's been a good relationship with them. Most of the officers allow them to ride with them and just become kind of a cohesive team.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hey, Chief.
Counselor.
Fancy meeting you here. I have a couple things to say and a few questions. But first, it's really nice to look at the numbers for the overtime and seeing that there's not as much forced overtime. I think that's really important, because the longer officers are on, you know, the harder it is. But you know, we're about 1,000 hours down from fiscal year 24, but I'm hoping that this next cohort helps that. And I did want to say, just for folks listening and the counselors, that I've been a part of this process, and I've seen what Captain Robinson has done to help expedite the process. There was a period where we were interviewing folks, great candidates, people who I think would have been great for the city, but they couldn't pass the physical test. And that was frustrating. That was time that your officers were spending, that I was spending, that HR was spending. And so I'm loving how you guys are still trying to streamline things and make it more efficient. And I think you got a really nice cohort this time, because it does take a long time to get folks. Mm-hmm. And I also want to thank previous councils and counselors for approving these student officers. It is very competitive. We're drawing from the same pool that other police departments are drawing from. So I think that's you know, it was a good step in the right direction, and we're seeing the benefits. The other thing, again, I'm heaping praise on you before I ask a question, is that much like the health department, something I've noticed is that your officers are going out in other communities and training and teaching. I know that, for instance, Officer Wallace with the trauma dog program he visited the Capitol. Did he go on January 6th?
He went. It was a while ago.
Yeah, but a couple years ago. But you know, our officers are going out and really teaching and training, and you know, when you say that we are kind of an example, I can see it, and so I just wanted to note that. I have the same question I had for our Chief Bellis, is the institution of this new Mark 43. How do you feel it's going to go? Do you feel like you need extra funding for training? How is that going to impact your department, both financially and also operationally?
So Mark 43, before I became chief, it was that there was a whole group of people who selected the next RMS system for police and fire dispatch. None of the people who picked that system are here anymore, so I'm not blaming them. But I don't know if I would have picked it, but I don't know. I didn't see the other ones, so no one likes. We had to pick a new system. Sorry. So we currently are still operating on. It's called IMC. Most police departments in Massachusetts were on IMC. It's no longer being supported, so we were forced to change. Then we picked Mark 43. So, which was named from Iron Man, by the way. I asked. But so it's been over a year, and the implementation's been slow. I pushed back because the company really wants us to go live, and not all the features are up and running that we really need to work every day. So I'm like, we're not going to go live until most of the things we need are done. Some were IT related, some were there, Mark 43 related. So essentially, most of the things are being fixed. They just sent a representative up the other day. I met with her. We're hoping to go live this January-ish. Before that, we have a small team of people who are going to be train the trainers. They're going to go to each shift and train all of us. Instead of sending a mass group of people on overtime, we're going to keep it low. And I was here when we switched from the previous system that it was called the AS400 to IMC. It was a snowstorm and ice storm, and no one knew how to do anything. And we were like in this new system. So like I know how they feel. And police don't like change like that way. So we'll get through it, but it's just been rough. We did go to Holyoke Police. So the nearest departments are Holyoke, West Springfield, Agawam, and we went to Holyoke Police for 4 or 5 hours, a team of us, and their detectives who are the IT people there. Their 2 hours was the best training I've had. So we have resources in the area to help us if we need it like locally. So does that answer your question?
That does. And I just have 2 quick things. One is that I know from interacting with you guys how much that your department supports the DCC and the establishment. And, you know, even our co-responders have talked about how they interact with them. But I know that some of our other counselors might have questions about that. So maybe you could just discuss how you are integrating and working with our DCC.
So our department, we have meetings. So me, Kelly from dispatch, fire, over the past year or more have had meetings on like how to integrate together, and we do get along really well. The DCC, Don from the DCC, he comes and meets with me randomly. We talk about like any issues that are happening. The calls that it's hard because I don't see all their numbers, but you know, most of the stuff that the DCC has been helping us with are houseless encampments, or if I like someone will call me and I'll call Don and be like, could you just send one of your people down and just check on this person? So it's been slow figuring out what they respond to and what they respond to with us or without us. But overall, some of the bigger things that they've helped us with are, like I said, houseless encampments who, if we're going to ask the person to leave or see if they need resources, we always send the DCC first and make contact that way. And then they kind of report back and we come up with a game plan. So it's
You guys
a good
learning.
relationship, though.
I think the thing that stood out to me was learning that your co-responders also know when to reach out to DCC, so that's relieving some of the pressure from them because you only have 2 co-responders, and so that is also sharing resources and making sure that you guys are being responsible. Last thing is I look through this thing, and I do not see a line item for the return of the Cops and Bobbers program, the fishing thing, so when are we getting that back?
Whenever you want. So it was Sergeant Moody who kind of spearheaded that. I don't know when we had the last one, but it's been a while. But we can certainly, it's a good event.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we have Counselor Davis and Counselor Robbins, Counselor Loisel. I was hoping to make it to the end. I actually have to go see my kid's presentation, but I wanted, before I go, and in the hands of our Vice President Clemmer, I just wanted to say thank you for being so responsive to individually to my residents. It's noted, and especially out in Leeds, it's nice to, you're always very expedient in getting back to us, even just with, process comments, and we appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Sorry I can't be here for the whole thing, but, so
We'll carry on.
I'll be back.
Okay, drive safe. Counselor Davis, you're up.
Thanks, Counselor.
Thank you very much. I wanted to know if you could say some more about the accreditation. I believe you said something like not every department is accredited. That kind of stuck out for me.
Sure.
I just assumed that would be everybody.
So it's called MPAC, it's the Massachusetts Police Accreditation Commission, and there's also CALIA, which is a national accreditation. We're state accredited, but it's a voluntary thing. So back in 2002, the Chief Sinkowitz and Brian Rust, who was a lieutenant here back then, they decided to sign on and start this process, which involved rewriting every single policy, and then once you rewrite the policy, you have to abide by the policy, and it took several years to get up and running, and then it was my job for several years to be the accreditation manager. So essentially, as the years go by, it's a 3-year window. You have to prove you're doing all these things each year, and then on the 3rd year they send a team of 3 or 4 people. They take a tour. We tour dispatch, which is part of it, and in our station, then they sit down in a room and for 3 days they grill you, go through every single piece of your department, and then give you recommendations, and you can fix stuff while they're there, or if it's a bigger, they call it like a repair, you have so much time after they leave to fix it and then prove you fixed it, and then you're awarded another 3-year accreditation. So like I said, we're up again in November, and any of the counselors are welcome to come over and see what they're doing. But it's essentially makes our department operate at a higher level of standards in every single aspect of the job. And some departments just don't have the resources to dedicate. It's a lot of time. You really need a full-time. We have a full-time civilian, Jen Delaney, who was hired just to do that and training after we all did it for years, like as a side job. So she's doing a great job.
Well, thank you very much. It seems to me that that's an investment well worth it to have a police department that's at the highest caliber, certainly. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Counselor Robbins.
Thank you, and thank you very much for coming tonight. We've had a lot of flaggers since there's a lot of DPW and Eversource and all kinds of work happening around the city. And I know it's come up many times before, but is that a profit-making effort in terms of the money that comes back to us from sending officers out to do traffic flagging? I know there was a push a while ago for civilian flaggers, but if we have your staff doing the flagging, does the city make money out of it?
So this, by contract, the officers, so we use police officers, we call them traffic control officers, who are new hires that are going to be police, or retired officers, and then we also use a flagging company, which is the third tier. The city does make, is it 10%, Charlene? 10%. So if I'm a landscaping company and I want to hire a detail to work on a road, the landscaping company is the one paying for the officer, not the city. So these are all private contractors, mostly. There are city jobs as well, but most of the jobs are private companies. It could, like I said, it could be a city job, but the company is the one paying for the officer to work. The civilian flaggers, the ones you see in Northampton they're from All-State Flagging Company. They're restricted where they can work. If the road speed's too high, they can't work in intersections. They can't work on certain areas. Some vendors can't use flaggers. They don't have a contract with them, so they're very restrictive, and they're only used when we can't fill the jobs at the end.
So is that a state requirement?
I think
About
it's
the
a state law that
restrictions?
restricts the
The state law
flagging.
restricts them. And is 10% a profit for us if we send patrol cars out and we have the engine running? These are
Well,
all
they-
things that
they-
are feedback from folks, right? Everybody has an opinion as they're driving through traffic.
I hear you. Most of the details do not require a cruiser, so the officers respond, they go in their own vehicle. If the vendor wants a cruiser, they pay an additional $20 per hour, I think. So
That's the going rate?
I believe so. I could give you the exact number, but I think they pay, if they request a detail with a cruiser, they're paying more for that.
So we actually don't make a profit out of that. That sounds like a bare even.
I'm not sure.
Well, it just seems like it would be a great profit-making center if we're actually hiring out. We have police staff and we have cruisers that are, doing services, trained officers, really, if they can't be citizen flaggers. And I mean, that's the going rate for all the towns around us. We can't like squeeze that a little bit.
I'm not
Sort
sure.
of saying, okay, we will send the officer out and you pay us this amount of money per hour for sending the officer out.
That's what they do. So if,
They pay 10, right, they pay 10% or 20% for the patrol car. Is that a profit-making arrangement for us?
they're paying more, they're paying for the officer. Then if they want a police car, they're paying an additional so much per hour. So I mean, the city's making, it's a small, yes.
Small profit.
A little bit.
But most of the jobs do not require a cruiser. The officers are spending they're driving out in their own vehicle, parking it, and directing traffic, standing there for hours. It's not, the night jobs sometimes require blue lights and safety. The ones that our officers working, most of them do not require a cruiser.
I just been hearing from some other towns that they have a different arrangement. I was just curious about what ours was.
I mean, in
Yeah.
every town I know, the
Yeah.
police are the ones mostly doing police details. Then they do have their new name is traffic control officers, but those are all retired officers mostly, or we use it as a recruiting tool. So if I'm going to hire a student officer, you're going to be going to the academy next year. You can be trained on the desk And if you go to this traffic course and be trained, you can then work traffic details until you become a police officer. So it's a good way for us to recruit people.
And that's a good segue into my second question, thank you, which is,
Can I ask a question related to this very topic?
Sure.
That's just, okay. I want to just clarify, these officers, they're working on their own time, right? It's not like they're not working their regular shift for the city, so they're getting paid extra separate from.
It all sounds great, and I work them too, but these officers worked all night, some of them, then they're working all day to make extra money. Some of them, they're working a lot, and it's hot, it's cold, so like, it might look, I mean, and it is more money and good money, but they're not having fun. It's like, they're out there just to make some extra money for their family, and
But it's extra money that's not coming from the city.
right. Yep.
Can I ask one thing? 'Cause
go ahead.
Is it overtime or is it just a separate job?
So it's by contract, so it's a
Not
detail
overtime.
rate. It's a different rate
Yeah, so it's
in
not,
their negotiated contract.
okay.
I actually have another question after this, okay? Everybody else jump in and ask about that one, but let me know when you're done.
Just really quick, I don't have the exact, the figure, but each community sets their own detail rate. So that's why you may have different rates. I don't have Northampton's, but I will find it for you.
Could I just on that topic, does the money actually pass through the city? So when you see someone listed on the public employee salaries, is it included in that, even though it's not directly, I mean, it's
Correct.
coming from the vendor?
Yes. It is a pass-through.
Anyone else?
Yes, sorry, that's so nice
who
of you,
asked.
thank you. But I guess I just wonder, is the 10% basically an administrative fee for the pass-through? You know what I mean?
So we keep that administrative fee. So-
Right, but I mean,
So it's not a pass-through. We collect the administrative fee for the vehicle, and we keep that. The pass-through is we actually pay the employee, and then we get we get reimbursed from the private contractor or whoever's hiring the detail.
okay. Is it also a 20% for the contract for the officer, or just for the?
No, it's a rate. It's an hourly rate that they get paid.
Yes, I meant the city.
City gets to keep for that detail rate. Again, it would be a percentage, and I have
Okay,
to look that up.
okay, thanks.
Anybody else?
So it would be great to get that on a piece of paper somewhere. Did you have something you wanted to
No,
add?
I was going to just say carry on.
Okay, yes, I have something else. And that is around I remember the discussion we first had around the student officers. And, you know, we would bring them on staff. There was a grant that was in the works at the time. We didn't get the grant. It was absorbed into the budget. But I see that we still have 3 positions for student officers. And then we have patrol or recruit positions. And so those are people who are graduates of the student position and are now recruits because they look as though they're earning the same amount of money.
So the problem is the academy calls them student officers too. So our student officers that the council gave us are civilians who make whatever rate they make. They're not making, I don't think they make the same as someone who, say we hire someone early as a student officer and they're just working the desk and waiting for the next police academy. Once they go into the police academy, there's a law that they have to be paid top step or first step patrol officer rate because once they're in the academy, they're graduating to become a sworn officer.
So are they a recruit once they're in the academy?
Yeah.
Okay, so people who are down on your budget as recruits are actually in the academy but not yet working for you.
So they're not going to be a full-time officer till they're done field training. So from the time we interview them till the time they're out of the field training program is almost a year. The student officer positions that the council gave us are so say we're looking ahead and we know there's 3 retirements. We're gonna hire 3 civilians who are gonna go through a certain amount of training internally in our department. They're gonna be paid whatever the rate is we pay them.
It looks as though it's the same as the patrol on that budget.
I don't think it is, but I'm not
Yeah.
positive. But once they go to the police academy, we know there's a police opening and they're gonna be graduating as a sworn officer.
And what's the retention rate? So there's right now, there's 3 student positions and 7 recruits.
So we have 7 in the Holyoke Police Academy who are filling police vacancies, and we're still down one person. So in the next academy in September, we would take our student officer who's a civilian in the station and send them to the police academy in September to fill that 8th vacancy.
And out of these 10, how many will stay, percentage-wise?
That's a good question. Hopefully most of them. I mean, we've had a pretty good retention rate. Our field training program is very strict, like I spoke about earlier. We're training someone who may not even know a lot about Northampton to police in Northampton. We don't want to put the wrong person on the street who's not going to be sensitive to our community. And we only know them from, and Councilor Perry can attest to this, we only know them from meeting them at a PAT test, doing their background, speaking with family, and meeting them at the interview. Those are very brief touches of their life, and until we really get them back from the academy, and we're with them every day for 3.5 months, 4 months, if they don't fit here, we're not going to retain them. We're not going to put someone who's not going to fit in Northampton out on the road if they're not qualified.
So does that happen very often? I'm just looking at the financial investment. So in these 10 people right now, we have well over $500,000 invested annually. And it sounds like a positive thing if we have an agreement with them that, we're shelling out for this and we're looking forward to having you stay on, and we feel kind of strongly about who we're offering these positions to.
I think our department over others has a really good retention rate, especially now. I went down to the academy on day 1. A department who put in $50,000 into a person, they quit the first day. I'm gone by. So we have 7 in. They've been in for months. I feel like they're a little bit older than the starting age. I feel like they're solid. They have like families. They're dedicated to our department right now. When they graduate, I'm hoping that they'll make it through the field training and help fill our staffing levels. I don't have a number. It's hard to tell because like we get groups of 1, 2, 3, and they're all good. We had a group of 3 and only 1 lasted. The program's designed to train a police officer to be here in Northampton, and like I know it's a financial hit when but they are not failing for just small things. We're talking about things that would impact the city down the road in bad ways. So it's not, to me, it's worth saying goodbye.
Also, Chief, may I add? Before we had the student officer positions in sort of this program, and there were a lot more vacancies, you were holding over officers a lot more. And that had a huge morale hit to the department, and we were losing folks, sometimes folks that had been around longer, because they were working in conditions that were really, really hard. So this has really helped with sort of forced holdovers and that kind of overtime.
Because the student officers, before they go to the academy, can work the front desk in the lobby, and that's a whole shift. So if there was a holdover, like the mayor said, we could take whoever's going to be on the desk and put them on the road and put the civilian in the desk area to save somebody.
I've met some of them who've been doing traffic duty, and they are great. I mean, they're just very personable, and I've enjoyed talking to them in the last whatever. But can we clarify that figure, please, about the student officers versus the recruits? Because in the book, it does have the same figure, 56,635, is that what it is?
Yeah, so we do budget because we never know when they're in the, where they are in the rotation for when they start being an officer. So we budget those as officer positions. They may not be receiving that until later in the year, but they are budgeted at the first level for an officer.
Somebody,
So what happens to that money that we've allocated for those positions?
Same as any other expense line that isn't used. It either is, if overtime is overage, that covers that, or it goes back to free cash as a turn back.
And do you know what the entry figure is then for those student officers or students?
I believe it's the one that's in the book.
So what they really get paid? So you said that.
Oh, I'm sorry, for the student officers
Yes,
you're referring to.
yes.
Yes, I can let you know.
Thank you.
And just, working in a hospital, that kind of thing happened, not often, but you train somebody for 6 months or 9 months, and then they're like, no, I don't really like this, and there's no way of knowing, it's unfortunate, but, it's just one of those things, so, and in a way, it's better that they leave if they're not happy instead of sticking around and being miserable at their job, so, I feel what you're going through, so. Councilor Loiseau.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. There's a lot of data in there. I was surprised there wasn't anything about the DCC, and I know somebody asked about that, but will you at some point have numbers of, like you have with the co-responders?
I could get numbers about, our response together, you mean, or?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you
The
don't,
response together it's not a lot, but I can certainly add it next year.
yeah. I mean, I guess I'm wondering, is the idea that will increase? Because I was under the impression that DCC and police might work together, or,
We collaborate a lot.
Yeah.
But on the call level, we don't, in my knowledge, just thinking about it, don't respond together a lot.
okay, because that's your co-responders who do
The
that.
most, because we're gonna rely heavily on our co-responders who can, Section 12 people, if needed, they're trained and certified clinicians, so, when it's it's hard to, we do have a matrix of like when to call the DCC, but on our level with the co-responders, like it's a very strict matrix on if we're going to use our co-responder or the DCC. Like if it was just, I don't know, for example, someone sleeping in a bank vestibule, that could be anybody, DCC, us, or our co-responders. It really depends on what questions the dispatcher's asking at the time, and if they think it's a danger, or the DCC can't go, doesn't want to go. If our co-responder doesn't want to go alone, then we'll go. But
Okay. Well, if possible, I think it'd be great to have a little bit of information next year
Okay.
About if you refer things to the DCC. Is there still a DART program?
we do, some officers are trained in DART and still do some of the follow-ups. I know the DCC has DART people too who are doing more of it. I know one of our sergeants still is involved in it, but I think it kind of morphed to the DCC.
Okay.
They do travel out of town too to help out with that, I think.
Okay.
So.
Okay, you said, I've just been trying to wrap my head around what it is the student officers do, like, because they're brought on, but they're civilians, so they can take a shift at the desk. What else might they do?
So they've helped us with projects like preparing for accreditation, reaccreditation. They've helped us build spreadsheets. It's like it's almost like a trained intern until
Okay.
they go to the academy. The main function is learning the front desk, though. That's really important, and it takes forever to learn.
Yeah.
They're
So you keep them busy. They're not just sitting there watching.
no, they're busy.
Yeah, great, thanks. And then I was wondering, is it possible for you to say what actually the charges were that got referred to the restorative justice program?
I don't have those with me, but I can get those.
Okay. And then my final question is, I get a lot of questions about how our Northampton police work with ICE or don't work with ICE, and I just wondered if you could speak to that for the public who want to hear,
We don't work with ICE.
What?
I'm wondering if that's a budget question.
Oh.
I'm just,
I don't know, but this was taking advantage of having him here because people always ask. And I think there's misunderstanding. Is that all right?
I'll allow
I defer
it.
to the.
Okay.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah. If you don't,
I
I
know
mean,
it's on
So-
people's minds, so.
yeah.
I've gotten so many calls from counselors and
Yeah.
others about ICE. We don't cooperate with ICE. In the whole past year, personally, I don't know of any time ICE was in town. We've had we have a detective assigned to the drug task force who, has an unmarked vehicle. I have an unmarked vehicle, but there's drug operations that have nothing to do with immigration or the feds or anything. It's a local task force through the DA's office, and they've been called in as ICE. I do know people are worried and see unmarked cars, but there's been no, ICE years ago, if they were coming into town, would call the police departments. If they do come here, they're not calling, to my knowledge. I've notified every officer, if you know of an ICE incident or that they called, please call me so I can notify.
So you're saying they don't tell you when they're coming and you don't cooperate with them. And that means if you arrest somebody, say, who's driving, who's undocumented, you don't notify ICE.
No.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Council Stratton.
Wasn't what I was planning to talk about, but just, on that line of thinking, once someone ends up in the court system, sometimes then the federal government does become aware of them. And that is a thing we could talk about another time. Also the Hampshire County DA's, the district, not county, but we don't have counties anymore. The district attorney's task force, has unfortunately often appeared a lot like the way that ICE appears. So there are some reasons for that confusion, and obviously it's not your agency, but if they would maybe try to present a little differently without the face masks or something, that confusion might be reduced. I actually want to rewind back to the flaggers. We've wonderfully gotten a lot of street repair, some of it on very quiet streets, and people are kind of like, why are there flaggers all over the place on this, extremely quiet neighborhood street? I find the most interesting things while I was looking for something else, and I was reading one of our contract solicitations, and I believe our basic boilerplate language, puts requirements. So if the city hires a contractor to do road work, there's requirements for what they're going to need flagging in terms of, the shifts go first to a Northampton officer or an officer from another community or retired, and then they go to the civilian flagging company. So some of that, it is public money. It's public money that goes from the city to the contractor, then back for this detail fee, and then, to the officer. But that's not a budget thing. I really appreciated what you said about when recruiting officers to, get time to know them, get time to know the city. We are a unique city. We are culturally a leader in some ways, in terms of our understanding of our people. It reminds me of a common complaint down in New York City that you have a very urban population that's primarily walk, subway, bike, being policed by a force that largely drives in from Long Island or Westchester and is not very resonant with the community. I was doing some looking right now, and our officers are required to move within 15 miles of the city line, so people are local. And I really appreciate that you take time to understand who you're putting on the street and that they, understand our community expectations. I think that's wonderful. With the student versus patrol, I was just looking at those same salary numbers, and I think there's about a $2,000 difference between the recruits and the two lowest patrol officers. So that exists, but it's minor. I was wondering, before we had the student officers, I've been looking at some things here, and it seems like to go to the police academy, you sort of either need to be an employee of a department or sponsored by a police chief, not necessarily the one who's going to hire you. before we had the student officers, how did it work? Were we in effect poaching other people's applicants or recruits, or do we lose recruits to other departments? I'm just kind of curious how that, there's no contract, I assume, that binds them to us. But
So, I mean, when I came on, we took a statewide civil service test. In 2005, we got out of civil service and had our own exam. And then that morphed into, a couple years ago, just having an open application. When recruiting was at its worst, we had an open application process. As long as you fit the minimum requirements of the age, the schooling, and didn't have a criminal record, you apply, which is like it is right now. Me and the two captains get an email with your application, and we take it from there. We never were able to poach because the police didn't get paid enough, or not enough, but they got paid less than other cities. Now the contract, in my opinion, has been getting a lot better for the patrol officers, and we have been able to poach. And I feel like the morale at the department right now, people don't want to leave, and we have a good way of word of mouth recruiting, but it is so tough right now still. It's like we're interviewing people and they're like, oh, I had an interview with Amherst last week, and I'm like, no, we'll offer you a job right now. So it's gotten better, and with the open application process, we can skip the whole test, because you could get someone who's going to be an awesome police officer here but fail the written test. That's tough. We have testing for promotion, but I feel like getting to know the person, we get to know them at the PAT test first, then the interview with a panel, and then if we choose to move them forward, we learn more about them through the background, and that way it has been a lot better. So other departments in the past have poached from us. In 2020, when we got defunded, we lost 5 positions, and 10 people left after that because of the way we felt. Greenfield took 3 or 4, Chicopee, but now it's getting better, and it's not like that anymore. So I feel like we have a stable core of people, and there might be a straggler who leaves for another department, but mostly we have a good department right now.
thank you. I think Director Nardi had something to add.
So I just wanted to say, we talked about this, and I didn't jump in fast enough, but when we talk about, a lot of communities talk about the investment that we put in employees, especially the police department and the fire department, and how do we keep them? But legally, and every community looks at this as, how can we contract them and say, okay, we've invested in you, you have to stay this many years, months, whatever. You can't. But I will say, as the chief noted, what we do here in Northampton, what we offer here in Northampton is so wonderful that I think we are retaining police officers. And I know a lot of the hill towns who put through folks in the academy and stuff, and certainly all those police officers are looking to come here when they're done from other communities. So I think we do a great job of making sure we retain them.
Thank you. And if we can just kind of keep the questions to budget-related issues, because we're kind of going out there. Councilor Nabat, I saw your hand, but
I did have a question, but I guess I was going to ask Chief Cartilage. I guess it could be related to the budget, but how many times have you guys needed mutual aid and you had that awkward moment where somebody who left and had received training in Northampton winds up coming back to Northampton on a mutual aid call? I guess that could happen.
So, I guess, I'm trying to recall. I mean, there's been a few occasions we've called for mutual aid. We're one of the bigger departments around, so not to bring up police details again, but say there's a swatting call where someone calls like the high school and says there's a shooter. We have our whole department going and everyone on a detail who's close responding. So that, we have armed people who are coming off of traffic details to these calls, which is a benefit to have police out there on details. So calls like that, there's some shifts, like someone asked the fire department, like the high, when their call volume's the highest, we're the same. We can't predict what's gonna happen. I mean, I've worked Christmas days before where it's nonstop, and you would think like everyone's home with their family, but they're out acting crazy. But what I was going to say is we rely on East Hampton a lot and the state police because they have a barracks in Northampton. But I would say it's not very often we would call if we have a large protest happening. We might notify the surrounding towns just in case we need them for manpower. But it's not like the fire department where we go to mutual aid quite a lot.
Okay.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks very much, Chief Cartledge. And so we'll move on to Director LaScalia now.
Thank you.
Okay. And the same, just please keep your.
Could we?
Yeah, I mean, just everybody's good with, I think we asked some other questions we could think of. So, yeah, thank you, guys. Do you want to take a fiver? Are you good?
I'd take a fiver.
Does anybody else need a break, or are we good to keep going?
Take a 5. I'll be back.
Okay, well, you're on Zoom, so you probably don't have to wait on the line to go to the bathroom, so
Okay.
I wouldn't think.
No.
Okay. No, we're just moving along. He's going right back. No. We'll keep going and then.
All right, should I wait for Councilor?
He'll be right back. in case-
Okay, great. So thank you for the opportunity to speak about Public Works operations and our proposed FY27 budget. I'm just going to talk us through the different divisions of the DPW in the budget book. So the DPW's general fund is organized into 4 divisions. We have administration and engineering, highway, which includes streets and fleet maintenance, snow and ice, and then forestry, parks, and cemeteries. Some of our responsibilities within the general fund are maintenance of 160 miles of roads, 85 miles of sidewalks, 38 bridges, more than 150 vehicles and pieces of specialized equipment, 10,000 public shade trees, 240 acres of athletic fields, 4 cemeteries, all of which are active burial grounds, and they have over 20,000 monuments. We also have more than 11 miles of bike paths. At any given time, DPW is running over 100 active contracts. We oversee more than 600 road opening permits for private contractors, and we oversee engineering for our own projects as well as those which come before the planning board. In putting together this year's budget, I needed to balance the need to accommodate PS increases due to collective bargaining agreements and the reality that the cost of goods and services continues to rise. We're also faced with ongoing challenges related to vacant positions. Currently, we have 18 vacancies out of 83 full-time employees. Last year at this time, we had 23 vacancies. These vacant positions can vary, but in general, we see truck driver and equipment operator vacancies most commonly because of the commercial driver's licenses that are required to fill them. We also have a large contingent of seasonal employees working in parks and at the transfer stations, and those positions have also seen difficulty in recruiting. So the Administration and Engineering Division is responsible for the development and oversight of our capital projects, utility billing and administration, and adherence to all of our regulatory requirements. We are currently managing about $40 million worth of projects, and we are heavily regulated by the Department of Environmental Protection and the Environmental Protection Agency. This summer, we will be adding close to $10 million more in work, and it's critical that we have engineering support to manage the many technical aspects of these projects. 5 of the 18 vacancies I referenced are engineering positions, and that requires that I engage outside engineering firms for the technical assistance that is needed. Moving on to the highways budget, I talked about this a little bit on the tour.
that I gave to council at the end of February, we often discuss streets and sidewalks and their condition, but we have responsibility for a lot of other infrastructure. We have 30 traffic signal controlled intersections. We have the rapid flashing beacons at crosswalks and in school zones. We have nearly 40 bridges, which include installations like guardrails and signage. Our infrastructure is frequently damaged by vehicular incidents where trucks and cars damage or destroy our roadside installations. We actually bear the cost of replacement if we cannot positively identify the driver. 2 weekends ago, the newly installed RRFB at the crosswalk at Paradise Road was destroyed by a driver. I think it was like a Saturday night. And that is not an uncommon occurrence. The RFB was completely destroyed. Police were actually able to identify that driver, so it becomes an insurance claim to manage as well as a construction project for us to manage. But generally, we're not so lucky, and we actually have to absorb that cost into our budgets. So other important items of note in the highway budget are the OOM lines. So those pay for everything from asphalt purchases and pothole overlay contractors to disposal of street sweepings to restriping all of our roadway lines. And a note about the cost of fuel. We're going to be feeling pressures all across all of our budgets with the high cost of fuel, but as importantly, we are responsible for the management of the city's fuel depot, which from a regulatory standpoint is the equivalent of running a commercial gas station. So we have a budget for maintenance and regulatory compliance of that, as well as the hazardous waste we handle within our garages, and that is reflected in our architecture and engineering appropriation within this division. So moving on to the snow and ice budget, that includes the overtime required for plowing, contractor assistance with plowing as needed, vehicle maintenance, and the salt used to treat the city's roadways. So in general, we purchase about 2,500 to 3,000 tons of salt each winter, and we have roughly that amount on hand at any given time. The unique nature of DPW snow and ice operations relative to other city departments is that each snowstorm requires the simultaneous mobilization of more than 50 employees to clear snow from across the city, and we actually can't demobilize until it's done. We have to ensure that we have staffing redundancy and equipment redundancy for a sustained response. We can't afford downtime if a plow, a loader, or a grader is out of service, and we actually have to be prepared to sustain multi-day events and response to them. So the more vacancies we have, the more our response time is slowed. This past winter, we purchased 2,965 tons of road salt at $111.24 per ton. So mathematically, it is clear that that is our largest expense. Of course, the more snow events we have, the more it tolls on our equipment. And heavy wet snow is particularly problematic. It damages our plows, blades, vehicles, components. This past winter was particularly challenging. We had more than 60 inches of snow and more than 10,000 hours of staff time in order to deal with it. So moving on to forestry, parks, and cemeteries. We operate in support of the city's recreational programs in this division, including soccer, baseball, and softball. Florence Fields alone totals 24 acres and is generally mowed twice a week. All our parks and fields are managed organically in accordance with the city's ordinance requiring it. Organic management requires a higher level of investment in materials and man-hours for things like overseeding and aeration. We also maintain city fountains, pocket parks. We support the schools in mowing Leeds, Ryan Road, JFK, and large areas at Jackson Street. We also manage all of our cemeteries and the burials within the city. And many of you are familiar with the tree program. We've planted more than 2,000 new trees since 2016 and have been named Tree City USA in consecutive years for over a decade. And I do like to take the opportunity to thank the volunteers of Tree Northampton for their support of our operation. So moving on to the enterprise funds, I think it was about 6 weeks ago I spoke in detail about water and sewer revenue, operations, and capital projects during the rate setting process. I will recap by saying that we operate and maintain expansive and complex water and sewer and wastewater systems that are heavily regulated by DEP and EPA. Northampton Water was just recognized by DEP as one of the top performing drinking water suppliers in the state, and our sewer enterprise Industrial Pretreatment Program was recognized for excellence by EPA. Both are extremely prestigious awards and are a testament to our employees and the framework we have created in our operations, which lends to this level of recognized success. So I'll talk about the water enterprise now. Our water treatment plant in Williamsburg flows about 3 million gallons of water a day to the city through more than 160 miles of water distribution lines and related apparatus. We're also engaged in engineering design for multi-million-dollar projects on our drinking water reservoirs and transmission main. It does bear repeating that Coca-Cola is operating at far less than 50% of their historical usage, and their latest report to us is that their full departure is expected later this year. So they have said that several times, but when they provide us a schedule, we have to believe that the information is accurate, and we have to budget accordingly. So in building this budget, we held revenue and expenses constant, continuing a remarkable run of stability over a stretch of time that has seen tremendous uncertainty and price spikes of more than 200% in many of the line items in this enterprise, and some of them have gone up by 300 or 400%. I will add that the capital needs of our system remain the same, regardless of Coca-Cola's presence in the city. So items of note in this budget are the principal and interest on debt, which are paid in service of construction of the water treatment plant from 2008, as well as the indirect expenses to the general fund. Taken together, these items are more than 34% of the overall budget, which in turn squeezes available funding for personnel, operations, and capital, as we discussed in my utility rate presentation. If you check the budget section under Water Enterprise Other, if you're looking in the budget book, you see funding for 2 capital items only: granular activated carbon and transmission main reconstruction. That total is less than $900,000 out of a $6.9 million enterprise fund. Capital is being squeezed because of inflationary pressures, and that is something that we need to be very mindful of in future years. Next is the sewer enterprise. Our sewer system includes more than 110 miles of sewer lines, 7 pump stations, and a wastewater treatment plant, which flows about 5 million gallons a day. If we get heavy rain, that flow can increase to 15 to 20 million gallons, and there is no off switch, there's no valve where we turn it off. It comes to the plant, we have to process it, we have to discharge it in accordance with the permit that's issued to us by EPA. So in building this year's budget, we had to fund sharply increased payments on debt service for the more than $30 million in upgrades that continue to be ongoing at the plant. There are a few ways that we can fund that debt service. We can cut expenses, we can cut capital investment, we can increase revenue through a rate increase, or we can transfer from stabilization. For this budget, we have both transferred from stabilization and we have scaled back capital transfers in order to balance the budget. So we have increased the overall value of the enterprise from $6.177 million, where it has been for several years running, to a new total of $6.673 million. Our rates remain unchanged, our operations remain stable, but debt service is projected to sharply climb in the coming years, and I caution that transferring from stabilization is not a good long-term strategy in this enterprise, particularly when we're faced with debt payments that will stretch for the next 20 years. Section of the budget you want to pay close attention to in the sewer enterprise is on page 104. It's called Sewer Enterprise Other, just like the Water Enterprise Other. You will see that we are routing under $500,000 total to capital, and that the projected debt service is just under $1.3 million. That is an increase of about $500,000 over last year, and it will be climbing. So the city's water and sewer enterprises have been level funded for a number of consecutive years. These are closed financial systems, and capital investment is required to maintain uninterrupted service. We have really tightened our belts hard, and as part of the ongoing efforts to support stable utility rates, despite the instability in the environment around us, the uncertainty surrounding Coca-Cola's operations, since 2019, we have not funded a total of 9 full-time positions in water and sewer, including 2 last year, and they have not been replaced despite increasing pressures on our operation. So now I'll move on to the solid waste enterprise. It similarly faces increasing expenses, as well as declining revenues, most notably in permit sales. In 2023, FY23, we sold just over 3,100 permits, and to date for FY26, we've sold about 2,400. We've seen a steady decrease in transfer station permits really overall from 2013 to present, and we've seen increases in disposal costs for trash, compost, and recycling. Trash was $79.13 a ton in 2019, and today it is $101.50 a ton. That's actually down from a high last year of $113.58 a ton. So a little bit of good news. We process about 800 tons of trash a year. We also used to receive revenue for our recyclables, but we're now faced not only with the loss of that revenue, but monthly disposal fees, which are based on tonnage. So these fees vary based on market fluctuations. We're dealing with month-to-month uncertainty in pricing. So I did a spot check of prices over the last year. Like some months it's $36 a ton, some months it's $21 a ton. Like, I don't, how do you even budget for something like that? It's just all over the place. So our fees and our hours continue to be more than competitive with neighboring municipalities, but traffic counts taken at the Locust Street station really show decreases in overall traffic, and we see that we're selling less transfer station stickers than we have been. So the goal is always to align our revenues and expenses in a way of where this enterprise is self-sustaining. This budget is not balanced, and it hasn't been for many years. It requires a transfer from stabilization this year in order to prove revenue from DOR. So transferring from stabilization is not a sustainable budgeting strategy. So in future years, we need to continue to examine this operation and adjust it as necessary. So at this time, we don't plan any cuts to our hours or to our operations. Finally, the stormwater and flood control utility continues to be level funded at the $2 million mark, and that has not changed since the utility's inception in 2014. Within this utility, we maintain 120 miles of pipes, 5,000 catch basins, 350 outfalls, 150 culverts, 2 of which are either completely or partially closed right now due to collapse. That would be Federal Street and Lovefield Street. We have 6 miles of channels and ditches, 2 levee systems, and the flood control station at Hockenham Road, which I believe you all visited and witnessed that performance. Our operations are governed by the conditions of our MS4 permit, which is issued by EPA, and Army Corps governs our flood control operations. As with water and sewer, as the fixed expenses within this enterprise rise, it likewise diminishes our capability to invest in capital. So many of our roads are in poor condition due to insufficient drainage, and this is the utility which funds drainage improvements. We have increasingly violent rainstorms and flooding, and the reality is that our infrastructure cannot support threats from extreme weather. So we're looking at a roughly $10 million price to upgrade the 1930s era flood control engines and pumps at the flood control station. Those have the ability to pump 150,000 gallons of water a minute out of the city. So FEMA's BRIC program has been reactivated. That's Building Resilient Infrastructure Communities, I think is what that stands for. And we're in the process of preparing an application to be considered for funding. But that is a massive level of effort as well as a very lengthy process. But I would consider this work to be one of the most critical proposed projects in the city. So that concludes my 11th budget presentation on behalf of DPW since my appointment by former Mayor Narkowitz in 2016. It is an honor for me to lead a department of nearly 100 men and women, some of whom have just started their careers with us, but many who have served the city for more than 20 years, and several who've served for more than 30. So their technical proficiency and dedication is on display, and all of us work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We work alongside our colleagues in police and fire and dispatch. The single most important part of my comments tonight is this part, where I publicly thank them and acknowledge their work. They actually watch these meetings, and all of us hear what is said, and all of us read what is written. I'm confident in my department and in our operations and in the critical services that we provide, and we do it well. And all of us rely on your understanding and your support as we serve this community, and we collectively thank you for that. So thank you. I'll take some questions.
Thank you, Director. So there's one person online. Councilor Perry, would you mind doing the timing, the 2 minutes? For that. I'll let you get queued up there. In the meantime, Dan, are you able to start your video?
I can check. Let me see. Yeah, I just got unmuted. I can't, but I don't
Okay,
really
wait.
need it. It's a quick question. Thank you, Director.
You could try
That
it
was a
again,
great-
Dan.
Sure.
There you go.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Director. That was a really great presentation.
Say your name and place.
Sure.
where you live,
Dan
please.
Brindell, Northampton, Ward 3. The one thing that strikes me that maybe you could speak to a little bit when you're talking about sort of our limited capacity right now in terms of sewage and drain water and everything, and how expensive it is to increase that capacity. Right now, we're sort of, it seems like at the beginning of sort of a push for high density.
We can't hear you, Dan. Dan, we can't hear you.
Sorry. I wonder if you could just speak to what kind of investment is being made to increase capacity to sort of prep for that. A lot of the high density is going to be down here in Ward 3. And I just wonder, what kind of investments are we making to really prepare for some of these communities to have increases of 100, 200, 300, 400 residents. So if we could just, I would love it if we could discuss that for a second. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think he's the only one, so. We're good.
We're going to go to counselors, right?
No, we go to public first.
Oh, yeah, but if there's no more public, are you going to go? Do you want Donna to answer that now, or?
Yeah, and then we'll go to the council.
So it's not, wasn't a general fund budget question.
Yeah, so in the context of our utilities, our utilities are networks. So if someone is going to, let's say, build a development on a particular street, we have to look at, okay, what is the capacity of the street, but also what is the capacity downstream? So if we're talking about stormwater infrastructure or sewer infrastructure, or what is our ability to provide fire flows? So we heard that commentary a little bit for Ward 7 from the fire chief's comments. So those are all the things that we need to look at. For large disturbances of over an acre, stormwater is required to be managed on site. Our systems, can't take more flow. Many of our systems are already undersized. And not only are they undersized, they're very old. Most of them were built, before the 1900s, and that's especially true of our sewer system. So in general, we have to look at an entire network. Sometimes we can work with a developer, and we actually have to upgrade portions of our infrastructure. But it absolutely is a concern, particularly in older sections of the city where our infrastructure is in need of more attention.
Thank you. We'll go to councilors now, and please keep your questions related to the budget. Although that other stuff is really interesting, we're here to hear about the budget. So, Councilor Lombard.
Yes, Director Lascalia, thank you so much for your service to the city, and thank you to everyone that works at the DPW for your service to the city. Okay, so I sent a question to you last week, and I am going to ask it again for the simple reason that I can't find the person in my email to send the answer. So, and it is budget related because it had to do with cost. So I had a resident contact me asking me about the lights at the corner of Jackson and Bridge Street or Bridge Road. in terms of they thought that the traffic might not build up as much if there was a left turn signal there. And so I wondered if you could elaborate on that particular intersection.
That's not really a budget question. That's,
Okay.
so could we just move on and you could send it into Director Lascalia?
Sure. I'll just have to figure out who asked me the question.
Right.
Thank-
I mean, do you have a quick answer? Or?
Yes, it's a controller issue. So if we get a lot of these questions about traffic signals and changing the timing or adding turning movements or different queuing times, and these are controller issues that often require upgrades to controllers or upgrades to heads, particularly when we're dealing with a constrained right-of-way where I can't put in a turn lane. That is very expensive to upgrade these controllers. It's all a lot of electronic equipment and specialized contractor work, and that would be the case at this intersection.
Okay, thank you so much. That's why I thought it was budget related, was because of the cost of it. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Stratton.
So, the discussion of the enterprises, there was a lot of subtext in there that I found very concerning for the future. And I think we've talked about this a little bit before. The enterprises are these closed businesses, and I think that is maybe poorly understood by the public. For example, months ago, I was up on Park Hill Road trying to hear what people thought about the poll petition. What they all really wanted to talk about was the stormwater fee. And they're, we don't have sewers. Why are we paying this stormwater fee? And it's like, well, it's a different system. And, yes, you have a septic system, privately, but the water falls in your property. It doesn't all soak into the ground. Some of it, runs off on the road, runs into a stream, goes through a culvert. The culvert washes out, needs to be fixed. That is a shared public expense, and this is how we pay for it. I mean, we could have done it with general taxes. We decided to do it this way. It's functionally a tax. Legally, it's not. If you build a larger development, you have to handle your stormwater on site, as was said, and theoretically that exists for an individual. Practically, it's not attainable. But that's one example of we are collecting this money from people, and I don't think people really fully understand why we're collecting it. So it becomes a persistent source of grumbling. And, I think I now mostly understand it. It's taken months to sort of understand all of the pieces of that. But I think it becomes a problem between the people and their government because it hasn't been fully understood yet. Similarly with the water and sewer, I'm hearing a lot of impending budget crisis. Like we might squeak through this year, but we really are going to have a financial problem with those going forward. And particularly with the Coca-Cola, are they here? Are they leaving? We collected more from the base rates. I think a lot of people think we're hoarding money there. And honestly, when I look at it, I think we've been subsidizing the enterprises with the city. I mean, we put a lot of the direct ARPA grants into wastewater treatment, drinking water, the Damon Road water main. I mean, we've actually been, if the box is closed and there's a hole in the box, the money's actually going in, not out. And we're depending a lot, on external grants for some of these systems. So yeah, it's politically dangerous to say at some point we're going to have to talk about a rate increase, but I'm not really hearing any way that the enterprises continue to work without eventually doing that. And I think, it's not a today conversation, but I really see that as a very challenging part of the city's finances and something that we're going to have conversations about in the future. So, I'm hearing the alarm call and I'm understanding it. I think we're going to have to work to explain it to the public, but I consider that a very serious issue.
Okay, was there a question or was that's just a statement? Okay.
I guess there wasn't a specific question. I mean, if there's anything in there I'm misunderstanding or needs more emphasis, but I was mostly, I think I hear what you're saying here.
Do you have any comments, Director Lascalia? Shall we move on?
Thank you for hearing the urgency around the need to pay attention to our enterprises.
Okay, Councilor Robbins.
Thanks. And Director Laskaya, I know yours is probably the most many-court oversight position. You have to know the stuff for everything, and I'm very grateful for your ongoing support. So it's hard, as Councillor Stratton said, to explain how the many funding sources are used in order to support the services that citizens or residents in the city expect, and they expect a very high level of satisfaction in what's delivered. And yeah, it's a balancing act for sure, but I'm going to build on the enterprise fund piece of it and the rate increase, because that is certainly what we hear most of. And there were questions raised about the recent change in the amount of money that we were spending and what the funding sources were for Picture Main Street, which we still, I don't think, have heard the breakdown of those, the disaggregation of those sort of general headings. So it's difficult to explain that to anybody. It's just to say there's this amount of money from here and this amount here. I don't know what's passed or whatever. And I still can't find anything in our documents that helps me build a picture of what your departments have allocated towards this project, or what you estimate you will have to allocate towards the project. I have asked until I'm blue in the face. I have heard that Director Mish is the one who tracks those expenses, but Director Mish just gave me back the slides that were presented to the public earlier, which really leaves us wondering where in the 5-year SIP that we receive and where in this budget can we find the monies that come from the variety of sources that will be used in order to underwrite Picture Main Street, which I think is a fairly simple question. It's not in here, and if it is in anywhere, it's divided possibly between your departments and your funding sources under different headings that a layperson would not know where to look for. You know, it could be those fiber, whatever they are. What are they? Those water fiber things, which I thought was fiber. So it wouldn't have occurred to me that it had to do with water. I really would love some help in being able to deconstruct that and be able to offer back a reasonable, substantiated breakdown of what the costs will be. And I know there are ones that come from the recent hikes in rates. They have to, because they come from enterprise funds in terms of what you've allocated. So how does that actually weigh in on what may be potentially water and stormwater rate increases in the future? That was my question one.
So this is the budget book. That would not be in this book. This is not the capital plan.
So we've had this discussion, Mayor, and I think I've said before that I don't see how we can look at one without the other if we're funding both, that those two, the capital improvement plan and the budget plan, are very much tied together. And that is an important. I assume personnel will be part of that cost as well.
These are recurring revenue funded general fund budget information.
Okay, so I'm not going to put you on the spot for it. I would love to have that breakdown, and I'm really finding it knocking my head on the wall trying to get it. It's a major project. I'll go on to my next question, but we can't just keep not sharing the details of that with the people who feel they are paying for it, whether they're grant funded, they're state funded, they're federally funded. It comes out of taxpayers' money. But I'll ask my next question.
You're welcome to answer whatever you want, Director Lascalia. We just did a presentation on this
and I'm
a couple weeks ago.
I'm actually saying that was great to get, but it didn't actually disaggregate what the sources were for that or where those monies will come from. And the trade-off is, what can't we fund if we're funding that? But
I think we listed the sources, whether it was Chapter 90 or it was
right.
CIP,
so I'm happy to go on to my next question, Mayor, if that's okay with you.
But
thank you.
Could I just say, we're not taking money away from other projects to fund Picture Main Street, though.
I'm going to ask my questions. Thank you.
What Councilor Robbins just said.
Yeah. So the next question really is around additionally, if we can't find this in our SIPs and we can't find it in the budget, as specific line items that are in there, I would ask the same question about road repairs, because we are using Chapter 90 money in order to be able to benefit Main Street. And after we had that session the other day, we did hear from folks who said, why isn't that money being used to prioritize my street? And everybody's street is important to them, and that they felt as though what wasn't being addressed was the current condition of the sidewalks on Main Street, which have been really allowed to become in very poor shape and are extremely dangerous now. And is that something that will be addressed sooner or not until after this project is underway?
So I can, I guess, maybe help with the stormwater question. So for Main Street, there is no money from the stormwater utility paying for anything related to Picture Main Street. So that can be taken completely off the table. The stormwater utility pays for MS4 permit compliance, it pays for our flood control operations, it pays for drainage work when we do roadway repairs. Because this is a Mass DOT funded project, they fund the asphalt and they fund the drain pipes. So the stormwater utility is actually not involved in Picture Main Street. And
so we're not paying for the pipes.
I can be quoted on that. I am confident in that answer. Mm-hmm. So for anyone who's listening, stormwater utility is not paying for anything stormwater related on Main Street. That is all Mass DOT funded. Sewer and water are non-participating items. The way I have to run the utilities is that I have to be prepared at any time to jump into a TIP project and deal with our infrastructure that may have problems. I actually have to be prepared within the enterprises at any time to jump into any roadway at any moment and fix something that catastrophically goes wrong. So we have an annual appropriation that is made to water line replacement, sewer line replacement, our engineering lines, so that we can stay with whatever projects may come up. And this Main Street project has actually been in development for many years, and as many of you may be aware, it was originally kind of scheduled to go some years ago. So what you are looking for in the capital plans was actually written by me in the capital plans some years ago. The appropriation into the water line replacement account was actually dedicated for upgrades to Main Street. But that would have been several years ago because I have to be prepared several years in advance to stay with a TIP project. Since then, there have been arrangements made with federal grants, in order to fund the water line replacement. And that's what was from our presentation, a couple of weeks ago or whenever it was. So the information you are looking for is something that I would have discussed as part of my utility rate presentations, actually from several years ago, if that's helpful to you.
It would be great to see it if you have it. That's all. That's all I'm asking. I'd love to see the funding for it. If you've had to increase the amount that goes in there and you're working with the TIP, being able to explain that to people who have a very different outlook on it would be extremely good PR for the city in many ways. This is the complexity. This is what it's broken down to. This is what we're spending your money on. And this is what we're spending grant money that comes into the city for particular uses on. Director Nardi. Can you turn your mic on? Thanks.
Just in looking at the Picture Main Street design, I'm not sure what you're asking because it does list where all the money is coming from and what funds
it's very generic, though, and it lumps bunch in together. So
generic in the state funding, Chapter 90, ARPA lost revenue, local SIP roads, which is a SIP project. You voted by council. Water, sewer, and enterprise, and local CPA. So it does list each and everything with the dollar amounts. And just to be clear, the Picture Main Street project is not taking funds away from the budget. Those are funds we would never consider because this is recurring, and these grants or funds were all one-time funds or not necessarily something we can rely on. So that project is not affecting what we can spend for our operating budget.
And I just want to clarify something for the record. You know, I've talked about the financial challenges within the enterprise funds. We cannot have huge hits for huge expenses and just say, okay, like in this year, you know, I need to spend $3 million on this thing. We actually have to engage in a significant level of pre-planning and make appropriations on an ongoing basis so that I can stay with these projects. So at any moment, if we potentially have a utility problem somewhere, we can fund it without having some sort of emergency within the enterprise and needing to, you know, pull out of stabilization or do something crazy with rates. That's actually how we achieve rate stability. So I just want to be clear that, you know, the conversation about Main Street, the conversation about Florence Street, which we're going to be paving, you know, these are things that we've been talking about for a long time. And so the responsible way to manage the enterprises is we're pulling a little bit of money every year and putting it aside to fund those projects. So it's not like you're going to see, you know, in this year's capital plan, and now here's, you know, all of this money for this particular
And that's exactly what would be helpful to see, is how much have we allocated every year from what source towards this project, and what do we estimate we're going to do and from what source. So if you say Chapter 90, that's great to cite that grant, but we're getting, what, $1 3/4 million for Chapter 90 this year on the cherry sheets. How much of that will go to the Project Main Street, Picture Main Street project, and how much will actually address roads and sidewalks? That is what I hear as a counselor every single day. When are you going to fix my street? And how is that going to happen? Is it going to be this year? Is it going to be 3 streets? How many miles does it go? Concrete answers to real questions that people in the city have would be extremely helpful to have. And I'm not sure why it's so difficult to not break that down into a table to say, this year we took this money from Chapter 90 and put it in this. And I won't go to my last question because I think you've just answered it, which is we've talked a lot about the encumbered amount of money, which is $30 million. And I'm assuming that some of that encumbrances is built into that, and the projects, because there's no list of what projects have been encumbered either or where they are, but not much of it's been spent this year in the book. And I assume those are your projects.
So if you're talking, so encumbrances is you'll see in the information that I give you quarterly. So just remember, you voted $29 million worth of projects just in March. So that's part of that number. So, and then it rolls over to next year and minusing anything that was spent in the spring. But projects take 3 to 4 years to accomplish. So what you voted in March, April for the SIP
right.
hasn't, you know, we've got to go through a process. So that really doesn't start to get spent until the fall or the summer for schools. We try to spend that as quickly as possible. But road projects, those kind of things for design, those take years to happen. So you're right. We do encumber that money from year to year. Usually we spend $4 to $5 million, you'll see, in the years as projects move through the system. And we talked about this,
we did.
And it was requested that in the SIP book, we're going to try to make sure we list the projects that are out there, what their status is, so you have an idea from year to year what projects are still out there and where they are, and we will provide that to you.
And I really appreciate that. I was just asking, the people who have those projects must have the records of where they are, what's stalled, what's in progress, what they still need to do. And that it's difficult to vote on a budget without knowing where we are in the monies that we've allocated and where.
Sorry, once again, none of this is part of the budget. Everything that you're talking about, none of it pertains to the budget.
Operating budget.
The encumbrances are in there. Fine, thank you.
Councilor Davis.
Thank you. I have I think is a quick question, Director LaScalia, and I'm responding to Councilor Stratton's comment that a lot of people think that you're hoarding money, and I really am concerned about repeating something about someone's concern that's like a rumor. And I think that you answered it though. And so I just wanted to give you a chance to say if you're hoarding money or not, or if that actually is the pre-planning of the humongous projects that have to be done, that you can't ask for, as your example of $3 million and it keeps the rate stable, et cetera. Is that the answer to why it may appear that it's hoarding, because you're saving it up for the big projects? Thank you.
Yes, a good example of this is in the water enterprise, where I mentioned that in a $6.9 million enterprise, I've got less than $1 million available this year for capital investment. So if we had zero money in the savings account, that means we would have $1 million to do all of our capital work for the next 12 months. That's every water main break. That's all of our projects that are in development. That's anything we need to do to support anything water work related in the city, including the granular activated carbon that's in the filters at the water treatment plant that costs $600,000 every time we have to replace it. You actually can't run the enterprise that way. It's impossible, because we would have to have wild rate spikes in order to support the level of capital investment that's necessary if we were starting from $0 every year. We have to appropriate money on an ongoing basis, and then we don't spend it evenly quarterly. Like, we don't have a cash flow, over 12 months that's like 1/12 of the $100, and every month we spend $10 or something. That's not how we're able to spend money. So we have to appropriate over time and then accumulate that money, and then you have the large expenditure. That's actually how we provide rate stability, and that's how we have provided rate stability for as many years as we have. And other communities have not been as fortunate as we have been here due to the way we manage the enterprise.
So I just want to make a point of, I guess, order, or which is that, of course, I came in, so I'm not clear on what the conversation was, but it has to be related to the FY27 budget and budget financial orders.
That's been mentioned
a
couple times.
Okay.
Thank you, though, for the reminder. Councilor Loisel. You were done, right, Councilor Davis?
Thank you for your presentation. I just want to say I'm overwhelmed for you. And I think your department must be the hardest department to lead. I mean, everybody has their challenges, but I think it's because what you do is involved in people's homes. They flush their toilet, they turn on their water, they come out of their house on the road. And so I feel like people feel it very personally, and so that's why we hear a lot of complaints, I think. But I think it's a miracle every time I turn on the faucet and when I flush the toilet. And I've never had a problem with it. Like, every time I turn on my water, it comes out. And so I guess I just feel like people kind of are taking things for granted, that we have running water. And you have 21% vacancy rate of your staff, if I figured that out right. I'm not good with percentages, but you said there's 18 vacancies. Is that 20% of your?
Out of 83 full-time positions.
So that is also like, how can you possibly do this work with 20% of your staff not hired? And, okay, so those are comments, but it does lead to a question. What's the reason for not being able to hire the engineers? Because that seems like a real problem. And is there anything that can be done about it?
It's as significant of a problem as our struggle to recruit CDL drivers. These are specialized positions, and we're competing with the private sector. We're competing with the private sector in a way that public safety is not. And the pay in the private sector is appreciably higher than the pay in the public sector, and that's the bottom line. There's just a financial reality associated with this. DPW is a very complex operation. We run a lot of huge projects and we have a lot of challenges, and you have to have the right people in the right positions because things can go wrong very quickly. And we have to have good qualified people working for us, and I encourage them, if they're watching, to come join us.
All right, well, I also had a question about the gas depot, which that is another whole thing. Like, you don't even talk about that, but it's like running a gas station, you said?
Yeah, the fuel depot. So we actually run the fuel station for the entire city.
So that's where the cruisers get their gas, and so when all those like departments get their gas, do they pay you for that, or do they pay the?
There is. So there's key cards, and so that's a whole nother administrative thing that we do. We manage that entire process and all of the billing, all of the vehicle logs, all of the employees who are getting gas there. But there's a whole regulatory compliance piece of this that's required.
Okay, well, I just think I want to thank your staff and thank you, because I think you're performing a miracle every day. And I also wanted to say, in terms of transparency and the budget, the city has open checkbook, which has so much information in it, and we have the budget books that go back years, and I think probably the SIPs on the city website to go back years, which can answer all the questions that are being asked. And when people say there's no transparency, it's just not true. So, thanks.
Councilor Stratton, if you have a budget question.
Yes, and please bear with me for a minute why I explain why this is all relevant. I just to speak to the engineering salaries there, I mean, that's not my part of the field, but yes, I fully understand why it's difficult to hire at what we're offering there, just as it is, for the CDL truck drivers. I think Councilor Davis might have misunderstood the point I was actually making. I raised these rumors because I know in this case that they are not true. I mean, I can see very clearly that we are not hoarding money in the enterprise. Part of the reason I can see that is that it's actually the opposite. I think you could make a very strong argument that the Main Street water and sewer pipes actually should be an enterprise expense, and that's not how the money was set aside to do them. It was set aside from the general fund, from budget surplus. Not ARPA money, budget surplus. On another night, we'll be talking about how the city is in fact hoarding money, but the enterprises are not where it's doing it. We've heard this argument that, that's not relevant tonight because it's not the recurring budget. And I just have to remind that this idea that we can't spend one-time money in the recurring budget is a starting point of thought. It is not a law. How is this all relevant? It's all relevant because Section 7-5, Subpart 4 of the Charter, which sets out the requirement for the capital improvement plans, says that the capital improvement plan shall include the the annual cost of operating and maintaining each facility and piece of major equipment involved. This information shall be annually revised by the mayor with regard to the capital improvements still pending or in process of being acquired,
Point of order.
or constructed.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think this isn't relevant.
I'm literally explaining why it's relevant.
No, well, you're talking about the capital improvement.
I'm
program.
reading a charter
Yeah, I'm
provision
gonna let that go because
basically
she's-
says that the capital improvement plan needs to include the impact on the annual budget. And we've been omitting that from the
Councilor
capital
Stratton, I'm
improvement
going to
plans.
let Councilor Loizel's.
I appeal the ruling of the
Strand.
chair.
You're talking about SIP. You were talking about other stuff.
I appeal
So
the ruling of the chair.
okay, well, it
What does that have to
stands
do with Donna?
the way it is. This isn't a SIP talk. Okay. It's a but. It's
Yeah, we have to take it, if the appeals.
then we have to take it over. Ready to let it go. Okay, Laura, could you do a roll call, please? So we're voting.
Right, we have to, if someone appeals, we have to take the vote, so
Yeah.
roll
that-
call would be good.
Okay, so vote in support of his ruling
So,
to appeal is
Yes.
a yes
In
vote.
support of Councilor Loizel's point of order. So a yes vote would be to support Councilor Loizel, which is saying that the SIP is not part of the discussion tonight. Right.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Nope, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So a yes vote is to support Councilor Loisel's point of order, which means that we're not talking about the SIP tonight, and we're going to move on to, and stick to the budget and move on. So roll call, please, Laura.
Okay. Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Dobbs,
I'm going to abstain.
abstained? That was- Okay. Counselor Clemmer,
Yes.
Counselor Loisel,
Yes.
Counselor Maori,
Abstain.
Counselor Nabad,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Robbins, and Counselor Stratton.
No.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses, 2 noes, 2 abstentions.
Okay. So
May I conclude by by responding to Councilor Loisel's comment on open
Well,
checkbook?
so it passed because we need 5 votes.
Your ruling was sustained.
Whether it needs 6 or 5, I don't know the answer.
Oh, the, yeah, let me look it up. I just walked in, so I haven't had my hands.
What is open checkbook? This nigga is wild. It's weird.
You can have a seat if you want, Director Lascalia.
Hold on, excuse me. Just brought my stuff back in, so.
If I could make one more comment, we could dispense
We
with this.
need to finish this first, Councilor Stratton.
Well, it's up to you, you're the chair, but let me just find amending, okay, sorry. I'll do- Trying to find the specific, it's two-thirds vote.
So we need 6.
Six. Yeah, no, it's two-thirds vote, abstentions,
Fail.
so it fails. Look, oh, how many yeses were there? Sorry, 5, so no, it fails. Yep.
Okay.
Shut my mouth.
So what happened?
So
Failed,
you
carry on.
Continue.
The charter requires this information about the impact on the operating budget to be included in the SIP, and that provision of the charter was violated. So we don't have this ongoing cost of ownership information to influence our budget decision. Finally, with regard to Open Checkbook is an extremely useful tool. I use it regularly, but Open Checkbook only shows the money we've actually spent. It doesn't show the money that's been set aside, appropriated, encumbered, et cetera. It doesn't show the money that's still, in the city's coffers somewhere in a bank account invested that has been dedicated to a purpose but hasn't actually been expended and paid to a vendor or an employee yet. So it only gives part of the picture. It's also sometimes very hard to identify things with the different projects, the different vendors. It's a powerful tool, but it is a far from sufficient tool.
Councilor Stratton,
That's all I had to
talking
say.
about, okay. This is about DPW
Yeah.
budget and,
I hadn't been here long enough to know what's been covered and what's not been covered.
so, and any other questions?
Come here. I'm over here.
Well, we're happy to answer it if you want.
Nah,
Sorry, I'm sorry.
So I guess I just still want to say, so I heard this at the SIP, and we will be looking in detail for the next SIP book, but we do address the debt, which affects this budget, which is in here. We talked about that. We actually list our debt in the SIP this past year, and this administration does not use free cash or general fund reserves for recurring because we don't want to end up with a bigger deficit. We only use the fiscal stability. So, and a lot of the projects that you're talking about have contracts. It's not just that we stuck the money in a account and we're not accounting for it. They have signed contracts that go with that money. So the mayor's not going to bring forward, we're not going to bring forward an order to use free cash or project funds to support recurring because it's a dangerous financial practice.
Thank you. Councilor Perry.
Yeah. Well, Director Lascalia, thank you for coming. I value your time, and I'm sorry you have to sit here with this back and forth. But You know how much I love tours, and I've already told you that your tour is my favorite. One thing, huh? Listen, I like a lot of tours, but it's well known that I love these.
We love
and I-
cartilages, Chief Cartilages too.
we hang out enough. Well, you know, so one thing, just talking about your staff, I'm very thankful for all the work you do. Just looking at the budget book, I'm looking at some of the overtime lines, and you know, something that even when we took the tour of the water treatment plant, you mentioned that some of the staff were held over. They had just worked an overnight. So I'd love you just to, for the public, and let folks know how hard folks are working, you know, all the time, and why some of the overtime budgets are so high.
Right, great question, and thank you for asking. So, you know, with 18 vacancies out of 83 positions, there are many of us who are doing more than one job, more than two jobs, more than three jobs, and sometimes four jobs. And that requires a really extraordinary level of effort. A lot of us wear a lot of different hats, and we do what we need to do to move the snow and get the projects done. And that requires, you know, a 7-day-a-week operation. Like, we don't stop at 3 o'clock Friday afternoon, and we don't, you know, not work on Sunday. So I have to have huge overtime lines in order to compensate for those hours that everybody has to work. Because of our ongoing staffing challenges, and also just because of our operational issues. I mean, most of the things that go wrong at 1 o'clock in the morning. They don't typically go wrong at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's just the reality. So, you know, we're a 24/7, 365 operation, and contractually we have to compensate our employees for that. And so, you know, that's really why I take this opportunity to thank everybody for their efforts, because, you know, for those of us who are there trying to keep things moving, it's definitely a level of effort that is more significant than it would be than if we were at full staff.
And then my second thing is, you talked about gas prices rising and keeping an eye on that. And I know you do a great job of planning ahead. You often talk about the salt that you hoard, and I think you said once you had to have guards there to protect the salt. But I'm wondering how the rising costs of materials are really impacting your budgetary decisions, you know, as you try and plan for it. I know you can't predict the future, but I'm just wondering how.
Well, and that's the other thing, particularly in the enterprise, is like we have to have some level of float. You know, when gas goes from $2.50 a gallon to $4.50 a gallon, and diesel is up over $6 a gallon, I mean, that's actually a problem for every single thing that we do. It's a problem for our asphalt contracts. It's a problem for when we haul solid waste to where we need to haul it to get rid of it. You know, we're running an entire, you know, we're running actually like 2 transfer stations, and we have a lot of trucking that we have to do. So when the price of diesel rises by, you know, $2.50 a gallon, we have to have some level of float built into the budget in order to account for that. So it really touches everything. It touches every single contract that we sign for every service that we get from every contractor who we utilize.
And then in terms of construction materials, do you see any signs of ways in which to kind of get ahead of rising prices, or we're just hoping for the best?
No.
No, okay. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question and a comment, and I just want to thank you and your staff. I know how hard you work, and really appreciate it. And out of all the emails I get from all of my constituents and other people throughout the city, the biggest complaint and concern are the potholes in the streets. So I hope that that's something that we can find more money for, and maybe fix the streets at a faster rate. I'm not blaming you. I know you do an amazing job. I'm just saying I'd like to get you some more funding to help move things along too, because you're getting all the emails that I'm getting as well. So, and then the other thing, I know you mentioned on the tours too that a lot of the repairs you have to make they're extremely expensive, and they're mandatory. It's not like you want to upgrade something. It's, they come in and there's regulations and you have to fix something or upgrade something. So I know that's very expensive, and you have to budget for that too. And also with Councilor Loisel, you know, when the first time I went to the water treatment plant, I had a water filter. I stopped using it because the guys convinced me that the water's clean. So, and that was 3 years ago. So all's good so far. But I don't know if you want to comment on anything or just that's it.
Yeah, I think one of the lines in the budget that really would be most impactful for those who may contact you about road work is our road improvements line in the OOM in highways. And that's where we buy all of our asphalt. That's where we hire contract crews who assist us in patching. It actually doesn't matter how many internal crews I put together. You know, we have 160 miles of roadway and much of it is in poor condition. So it's far more efficient to bring in, you know, a whole gang of contractors and just kind of turn them loose. So I've had Warner Brothers in the city. I've had about 10 different people covering a lot of ground in the city. And I hope that it's made an appreciable difference, at least from what you've been able to see. But that's something that should really be paid attention to in our budget. And any opportunity to fund that more should be taken.
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you too. I'm sorry I missed the bulk of the conversation, but I appreciate you breaking it down for us. We have to, as we've all noted, we have a lot of DPW questions kind of constantly versus other departments. So I appreciate it. And Cindy too. Tell Cindy.
Yes, Cindy too.
She's the best.
Anybody else or? Councilor?
Sure, I just wanted to thank you also for all the work that you do, and I have actually seen a noticeable difference in some of the spot repairs and some of the potholes on Main Street curb cuts and in the road around that area, and on Pleasant Street. There's a spot repair recently, so just want to thank you for all that work.
Thank you, Councilor. We're about to mobilize a $600,000 sidewalk project in the next couple of weeks, so that's going to make a big difference.
Oh, can I just say one more thing? I'm sorry. I just wanted to say, you know, my maybe a glimmer of hope. Like my kid loved to see the projects around town, and now he's graduating from high school, and he wants to study civil engineering and specifically to work in municipal situations. So I think it has a lot to do with seeing what's going on in our city and probably hearing me drone on about it. But anyway.
Would he like a job?
Yes, yes, he would. He can start tonight. I'll send him over. So I'm hoping that, you know, that would change. The interest in serving our community could be really meaningful for people.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and thanks for all the information and all you do. Okay, I'd like to take a 10-minute break. It's 8:52. We'll come back at 9:02. So it just still says recess, though.
Oh, it still says recess?
There you go. So just before we move on, just a quick announcement that the budget meeting is still in session. So as soon as we're done, we'll adjourn the budget meeting with the council, and then we'll reconvene with just the finance committee and hold our finance session after that. And I'll turn it over to Council President Maori now.
Thank
Welcome back.
you. Thank you, Chair. Now we are on to Central Services and the Climate Action and Project Administration. I realized when I looked at our agenda that when we started grouping you all together, CAPA was really small, had just started out. So whatever you're comfortable with, you can both present, you could take questions individually. I'm open to how you do it. And maybe next year we'll spread it out now that CAPA's been around for a while. Thank you.
Perfect. So I'll try to be brief and quick with you guys. I know our budget is complex, but obviously after Director LaScalia, ours is also very straightforward at the same time. So I'll try to be brief so I don't keep you guys here too late. So good evening and thank you for this opportunity to present. Tonight I'd like to walk you through who we are, what we do, our FY27 operating budget, and most importantly, why this funding matters for the day-to-day operations for the city. Central Services oversees 55 people across 3 divisions, managing 26 buildings and parking infrastructure that is on average 1.6 million square feet total. We support roughly 4,100 staff and students across those facilities. I do want to just make a note that in conjunction of the 55 people here, 34 of those is school staff, which is not being represented in this budget. Back in March, we did a tour with you guys in which we gave a much further in-depth kind of overview really of who we are, what each person's roles and responsibilities are. So I won't kind of dive too much into that in this presentation. So our work spans generally 6 core areas. You can think of it kind of in 2 categories. Kind of hard services, which is basically your physical integrity of the buildings, which includes like your MEP, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, structural, street lights, landscape. And then there's kind of the soft services that come along with that, which is custodial, mail, copies and printers that are managed, supplies, project management, and event support that make buildings functional and welcoming. We collaborate closely with CAPA on energy improvements and upgrades. We operate inside Massachusetts procurement law, mostly using Chapter 30B and Chapter 149. At any given time, we are managing 40 to 50 active contracts. Those range from maintenance contracts, lease agreements, purchase agreements, design, and construction contracts. So our FY27 operating budget totals just over $3 million across 2 cost centers, you could say, Central Services City and parking. This is just more of a visual representation of what you guys have in the budget report book. So this kind of shows a good breakdown of how our city budget is broken down. As you can see, the single largest category is actually utilities. That is covering electricity, natural gas, water, sewer, stormwater, and street lights across all city buildings and the city itself. The next biggest is repair and maintenance, which is about $253,000, covering both reactive repairs, preventative maintenance, and supplies for buildings, grounds, HVAC, and vehicles. I do make a note that within our contracted inspections, some of these, like DPW, there are code compliances and requirements that include fire extinguishers, fire suppression, elevators, fire alarm testing that are mandated and required. We do have contracts for those services. We typically run them on a 3-year contract, if possible. But for instance, we are having to renew, going into this budget year, our elevator and fire suppression after a 3-year contract that is concluding. and already those contracts are increasing by about $10,000. So it's as other departments have mentioned, there's increases in cost, and some of these are actually code compliant to allow us to actually operate and be within these buildings. So rather than walk you through each of these, I'll just say this. Every dollar in this budget is already doing work somewhere in the city. The fire alarm inspection that happened last week, the boiler that was repaired before the winter, the custodian who cleaned this space that we're in tonight. None of it is glamorous, as some would say, but all of it is essential. We are here to do our jobs, support the rest of the city, and collaborate with other departments wherever we can. I know Councilor Perry, I'll answer maybe potentially one of your questions now. You asked how we collaborate with other departments. And just to give some short examples, our IT department, we collaborate with them. Our electrician is very knowledgeable. He runs a lot of the network cable and data for basically a lot of the systems they have in place or that has been in place for the past 20 years. PD we utilize with drone footage. We actually worked with the fire department this past year. There was a large obstruction, basically I don't really know where it actually came from, but the rear roof of Academy of Music, when we did do drone footage, we saw that the roof drain was clogged, and we were going into winter, so we were concerned of that freezing. So instead of spending almost $5,000 to have a contractor come out and remove that obstruction, we worked with the fire department because they have never approached that building from South Street, so they utilized it as a training exercise within that time. We work closely with the building department itself in regards to reviewing code compliances for construction projects, whether that's internal, external. As mentioned with the CAPA department on energy and mechanical upgrades, EV installations are done in-house most of the time with our parking division supervisor and our electrician. So those are just a few to list, I guess. So yeah, the next slide, if you want to go ahead, Charlene. So that's really it that I have for you guys tonight. I thank you. I want to say that what you've seen here tonight truly represents all of what our staff does each day. I'm thankful to have them, and I'm grateful for the work that they put in. I surely wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the work in which they do. So it's all about them at the end of the day. So like I said, very brief, but if you have any questions, please let me know.
I'm not seeing any hands. If there's anyone in the public on Zoom, I don't see anyone in the room, so anyone who has a question.
I don't know if anybody's talking, but we can't hear.
Oh, that's my bad. I was just saying, I was looking for any members of the public on Zoom who may have questions related to central services. If not, we can go to counselors. I was just going to say I'd have a lot more questions, except that that tour was really comprehensive, and I've been a counselor for a long time, and maybe we did some iteration of that, but I found that really helpful, and I hope we do.
That was the first time at Central Service.
Right. I didn't think we did that, and I just found it incredibly helpful to understanding the everyday. Let's see, workings. I see Councilor Loisel.
Thank you. I just have a question about the divisions. And do I understand this right, that you have 55 employees, but 34 of them work for the schools?
Correct.
Okay. So, but those people are part of central services?
Correct.
So, so the central services is responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the school buildings? Okay.
That's correct.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Counselors, I'm just going to ask a clarifying question. So is Tony's role, is he considered as his own department, or is he part of central? Oh,
he's part of central
Central,
services,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
A lot of our kind of, as you guys will see in the book, there's percentages and allocations that are given to certain employees. So like myself, even though technically if I'm fully funded, a large percentage of my time actually does go into the schools. We have 2 project managers and coordinators. Their time is split basically between school and city. Our one HVAC electrician and our one HVAC technician and our one electrician, also their split time is between the city and schools. So that's kind of where we all fall under this umbrella. There's some employees that are very separated, but then there's others of us that we can join and do both.
So Mr. Kusniers is a dedicated.
He's just schools.
Yeah, and that's
Yes,
unusual.
he does not get involved with city, even though I keep him in the loop. And,
Yeah.
you know, once again, we're still a unit and a team. So it's nice for everyone to be aware of what's going on holistically everywhere.
Yes.
I guess I just wondered also, do you present to the school committee?
I personally, I have not, no.
And I guess I just, because how does the school committee know what's going on with the buildings and stuff like that? And should that happen? I don't know. I'm just asking. Because there's been some talk about lines of communication and that kind of thing.
So the superintendent and Tony would keep them informed, yeah. And Tony, while he's part of central services, like reports to the superintendent and works with the superintendent very closely.
Yes, Director.
Can I just add, so for the new counselors, if you actually look at the book, as Director Deppen said, when you look at the funding sources in the book, whichever department, and Director Deppen's is on page 57, if you look at the funding sources and under other, that's where we list the amount. The total salary is under the FY27 budget. And then if you look over, the general fund is paying what it lists there. And then if you go to the right, even more so, the last 2 columns, it'll tell you how much is being spent or how much is being funded by something else. So like in this case, you'll see NPS. So that's being funded by NPS, 12.5% of a salary or 25% of a salary. So I just wanted to share that. And that's true of each department you can look at.
Though, as the director said, she does does spend a lot of time on schools, but actually the schools don't fund her in any way.
Yeah, if you kind of took the square footage of our city buildings and our square footage of our school buildings, the school buildings are almost 3 times the square footage of what our city buildings are. So if you just encompass that in regards to contracts, construction projects, maintenance, staff, and oversight, a lot more time is dedicated, you could say, to the schools. But, you can't really put a solid number to say what percentage gets really devoted staff-wise. It varies.
Thank you.
But I ensure that all attention goes to both sides to full capacity of everyone.
Councilor Perry.
Yes. Thank you again for your presentation. And thank you for preemptively striking one of my questions. You got me. And, so I kind of understand that you handle the things that people use here, the things the city owns, which I'm very thankful for, because a lot of our buildings are utilized in many ways. One of the things that I've been asking about was from the IT department. We're talking about new solutions in platform management, and I think you had mentioned that in the CIP about trying to migrate things. So I'm wondering who is in charge here in the budget of kind of doing that? Is there someone, or is it kind of a group effort?
In regards to the software platform?
The software platform, and also who is putting all those lovely blueprints and documents in? Is that someone here, or are you guys kind of just?
Yeah, so the blueprint scanning, it was that we're digitizing all of our documents. So if you kind of walked into the back of our office now, it's empty. If you open the drawers, it's empty. So that was in conjunction with the IT department. We worked together on the procurement of soliciting for a contractor to digitize all that documentation, but a lot of work was really done in-house. Thankfully, like I said, very grateful for our staff, because there's tons of duplicates that exist within our blueprints that you would go through. So we could have just said, take it all and then realized we're spending money on things that we really maybe didn't need to have digitized. So the staff kind of split up the load and went through and pulled out documents that weren't needed, were redundancies, and then they were actually picked up about a month ago and are getting digitized now. And then in conjunction with that, with the IT department, we're working on the implementation of Brightly for our asset management and work order system. Once again, that's kind of a combo of, our department and IT working together on, we have almost kind of every other weekly meetings with Brightly on the implementation. IT is always involved in those conversations. So we're hoping that will kind of be internally being able to take advantage of piloting that program in like the next month or two, and then ideally get that off to staff internally to be able to be utilized. So.
And I guess the follow-up would be then, since you're utilizing these platforms, do you think you'll see an effect in terms of productivity or your ability to, I mean, you said that you guys are lean staffing and heavy load, so
Yeah.
is that kind of the...
Yeah, exactly. I believe so. I mean, even personally, my time of when you're having to do research for gathering documentation for a project, whether it's for yourself, an architect, an engineer, construction, a lot of time gets spent kind of as like you guys are going through these budget reports, or you're trying to find data from FY 2016. We're kind of having to fine tune and go through all of that data because you have to have the historical knowledge dating back to X to supply to whomever or whatever project it is you're working on. So to have that process streamlined and organized in a searchable, findable capacity, I find it reduces my time to collect and gather data. Just a minor example, I can do that now in like this, when it used to take probably like an hour to try to gather that information, which when you add that across the board, that adds time. That's time management that should be dedicated far more to other capacities within our workload. So that's kind of just an example. And it's the same thing, as I said, with implementing this asset management work order system. Ideally, hopefully, you're reducing redundancy of work that might have happened, or you're able to know what someone did a year ago. So if the same problem happened before, you can either, one, call the contractor out because it's either, maybe it's a part or a warranty issue. Rather, if you didn't have that documentation, the contractor surely isn't going to remind you that they once did that repair, and they're going to charge you again. So it's those little things that seem kind of minuscule, but those are the things that kind of add up with time. And those are like the things that we're really trying to dive into, even within our like operating budget itself, on how can we, with those smaller things, actually encapsulate that to end up being much larger than what we think.
Thank you.
Okay, counselors, any more questions for Director Deppen before we move on to CAPA? Thank you so much, Director.
Thank you.
And thank you for your patience.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, thank you for everything.
Do we always put you last there?
I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
It's our hazing.
Thank you, Charlene. Yeah, thank you for having me. So CAPA has existed in its current form for just about 2 years, not quite a full 2 years. So I've done 2 of these presentations. The first one as an interim appointee.
Oh, yeah.
And I had this slide up, or a version of this slide, at the end of last time. And I thought this is a pretty good way to do some accountability. How much of what I said we would do, did we do? So if you hit the animation. So we here's our little grade sheet. So
that's cool.
Some of it is obviously continuing. So everything that we start to do, a lot of it ends up being something that now we have to figure out how to continue doing it. We're kind of creating work for ourselves. So we do demand management. That's a constant thing. So every summer, I get texts from ISO New England to tell me, turn down this or that, basically that I control with the bigger accounts to try to save energy, and we get payments on that. So I'm not going to go through all of these. So you can see that there are a bunch of these things that we've either done, that are ongoing, and then some that we're starting to do. And then some things we explored and have either hit roadblocks or found that actually it wasn't a very good idea, let's not waste any time with it. So I'm happy to come back to this on any of these if you want to ask questions. Next slide. Because it was 2 years and because fiscal years don't line up with grant cycles and project cycles, I just said, let me take 2 years and see how we're doing over 2 years. So you can see 2 years of CAPA budget there in red. And we've generated some decent amount of resources through grants. Got almost $2 million in grants. Add that utility rebates, tax rebates that are both coming, and so I'm doing some of this as prospective as we've gotten things started. I'm counting it. And then energy savings and cost savings from that, and then cash flow from 0% financed projects. And you see with the financing, this was where it's 0% financing. Obviously, that big chunk is the Green School Works grant for the high school project. So the ROI on our 3-person staff is not terrible. Next slide. And I put this up to show that when I've used projected energy savings, I have a fair amount of confidence in it. And the reason is we now have results from kind of our first big project, which was Leeds Elementary School, and we got the energy reductions basically that we expected. So, we hit our mark. We are using roughly the same amount of electricity at Leeds as we were using before the intervention to do heating of about half the school with electricity now, when before it was gas. So that's, it shows that when we do things holistically, we actually get some effective stuff done. So we can talk about that if we want to. But so we've got a bunch of other projects going. We've incorporated vehicle leasing as a process into the SIP process, which when we talked with you about that, we showed how that's working. The motor pool is now up and running, and we have e-bikes and EVs. We are increasing our fleet charging capabilities, and so that's on the municipal fleet. For the general public, we have a bunch of programs that try to get them electricity cheaper and try to get them access to a variety of incentives to help them transition properties to higher efficiency and more renewable energy. Next slide. Yes. And when I get to that slide, I'll talk with you that one about it in a minute. So just for the motor pool, so before we were like, is it going to work? We now see how it's working because we have the data. So the e-bikes are contributing, and particularly for DCC. So we've, because we're able to do the sharing, we started out small and we had a surplus of vehicles, and then we were able to expand who's participating. So we started out with really just health. And now we have all these others. So we have 45 users for the same 7 vehicles. And we actually moved one of the vehicles over to IT so that it's their primary shared vehicle, but they get better utility out of it because they have an app to share it internally. And what I'm hoping is as we get one more vehicle and transition another thing, we'll give them another one. And so that's this other location. The neat thing is we now have keyless operations. So your phone is your key, which means that if, say, someone at IT needed another vehicle and there was a free one over here, they could walk down here, just check it out and run it. So as we make it more frictionless, we get more utility out of the same assets. And so by doing that, we are avoiding replacing IT's 3 vehicles, which was in our original plan for vehicles, but again, we have the data now to see that we don't need it. Next slide. We did name the cars, yeah. So this is the Community First Partnership. This is what we were talking about, that is a partnership with East Hampton and Northampton and West Hampton. It's complex because we tried to combine a bunch of different programs. So there's an East Hampton, Northampton one that's basically due to a settlement with the gas company. And then there's a West Hampton one for a grant that we applied to share an energy advocate. So not to go into too much detail, again, we can come back, but you can kind of see that we do these outreach activities. There's a lag, they lead to leads, and then you can see those leads transforming into audits, and then those audits transforming into weatherization and HVAC and heat pump projects as you kind of go forward through time. So we expect to see more of them based on our more recent outreach. And you can see that we're getting a little bit more than our fair share of the services for whatever reason. So that program feels like it's actually having an effect. Next slide. Valley Green Energy is our electric aggregation, and because it was significantly less expensive on the supply side of part of your bill than National Grid was, we were saving customers over this past year just under $1 million total. This is where we start to get the warning. So we've trimmed it even more, but it's about to go up. Now, it's still going to be less than National Grid by about a cent, but this is probably the best we're going to be able to do. Prices are going up, and we took this opportunity both because we knew it was coming, and we had to lock in prices, so we did our best. But it ain't going to be pretty, for anyone. But we're at least for now lower than National Grid, so you're still getting savings. Anyway, so purchasing electricity, locking in energy contracts is something that I'm working a lot on at this very volatile time. Next slide. And the person who works on it with me is the energy officer. And so, when we came in, we were lucky to have locked in really, really good prices. So we're saving 35% on the supply sides on electricity and 19% on gas. That's probably not going to happen again, or even if it is percentage savings, it's still going to be higher than it was. So even good rates, even as we negotiate, and we're doing some pretty sophisticated stuff, buying the non-energy portions and then hedging and trying to lock in low rates and kind of build a rate in a much more sophisticated way than we had to last time. It's still going to be very hard, given what's happening in the world, what's happening to energy markets. So that's just something to be aware of coming up. But we're good pretty much until the end of this fiscal year with our prior contracts. Not quite with gas, but almost. So the other thing she does is grant management. She's managing a lot of these grants, including the Community First Partnership. She does a lot of reporting. Thank God I don't have to do all of that. And she does a lot of the motor pool operation and management. And this is one where we all divide our roles. Next slide. And the chief procurement officer really serves the whole city, and the mayor put his position in our department so that we could kind of revolutionize or streamline the procurement side of project management. So he's made a lot of efforts towards streamlining compliance, kind of educating people as they go and using software to help onboard projects earlier and get the process to smoother than it was. He also manages insurance, so seeking places for insurance discounts. A lot of things where maybe small dollars here or there, but we're working on that. And he really kind of discovered the vehicle leasing possibility and manages kind of the financial side of that. Next slide. And so this shows our budget changes. We managed to slightly decrease our operations budget. We took on a motor pool operations and management budget last fiscal year. That's level funded, and that one was basically taken from the departments that were now in the motor pool. So the net cost to the city was the same. And you can see the personnel increases with time. Next slide. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions or go back into details.
I'm just going to ask a clarifying question about, but the procurement officer is a city staff, or is he just, it's not just?
City.
Right.
Yes, so.
But you count him as your staff? Does he know? Does he know?
Does he know that? He's in the CAPA department.
Yeah.
But so much of procurement for the entire city goes through the chief procurement officer, which was the mayor's strategic kind of insight. That way we get to see stuff and say, is this the best way to do it?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Thank you. Let me just see some hands. I saw Councilor Stratton. Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you. It's getting, I didn't see any, but we have to remember Zoom. If there's anyone on Zoom from the public that would like to ask or a question or make a comment about the Climate Action and Project Administration Department's budget, please raise your hand, your virtual hand. Okay. Thank you for the reminder, Counselor. Okay, I'm going to move on to Counselor Stratton.
So thank you for coming. It's been interesting to get to talk to you on energy and sustainability and things. I think a lot of the bigger money things that happen in your department are really more towards capital, which indeed is actually not on the agenda tonight. Just something that jumped out to me there. You talked about, the copiers. And it's tiny, but I noticed we've been given a lot of full color printouts tonight. And I'm kind of like, did we actually need that? And I mean, we're not talking about much money for the city, but, each one of those pages, I'm not going to wave one around and embarrass anyone, but, they cost something. And we could get those electronically or just as a black and white printout. But thank you for, efforts on all sorts of things.
Can I respond to that? So
Can I respond to that too?
Okay, so I printed one out. I happened to bump into Councilor Clemmer. I said, does this look like, would this be good for you? She said, I don't need that. And it's kind of embarrassed for your department to be printing stuff out, so I didn't print you guys any.
So I take full responsibility for the colored printers, printed printouts. I thought people enjoyed them last week when we had it, so I requested them. So I take full responsibility for the printouts. That is my fault, not the department's, and certainly not Director Wiles.
I will make a comment that I personally find color copies, much more digestible, and I think a lot of neurodiverse folks do too. So there is the issue of just being able to appeal and digest the information for the reader.
And to be clear, we don't generally use color. Our copiers out in the mid halls are not colored, and we only use them for special presentations. But I do feel like what we're presenting to you tonight is very important, and it does give context. But you're right. I mean,
well, and those
this
graphs,
department, it probably was appropriate.
Well, but those graphs, you wouldn't. I mean, black and white wouldn't have cut it with those graphs.
But yes, so I take full responsibility. My fault. Thank you.
But maybe you can send us the PowerPoint and we can have that.
I will definitely do that. I usually send it too late and only when I've actually asked, but I will try to preempt that.
Okay, Councilor Stratton, did you have any more? Okay, Councilor Robbins. Oh, okay. And Councilor Robbins, did you have your hand up? No. No. Okay. Okay. And Councilor Perry. Let me look online.
I just want to thank you for your presentation. And it is clear for anyone who is wondering what true value comes from this department. I've seen over the last couple years just the actual cost savings, and I was heartened to know that you guys are doing things like the motor pool with your phones as access. It's just really innovative. I don't have to ask you the question about how you interact with every department because you consistently come with that and you're always overwatching it. So I just want to thank you for that and thank the mayor for taking some of these strategic steps to really get some cost savings and think towards the future and sustainability of our city. So that's it. No question, just some praise. So thank you.
I see Councillor Loisel.
This might be not relevant, so tell me. I'm going to just ask the question. Because you had pictures of Leeds School, and so I was wondering, because people have been asking me about Bridge Street, when that's going to be fixed. Is that okay to ask?
I guess it would depend if yes, why don't you ask it? I don't know if the answer is capital or something else, so I can't.
I guess I
say.
just wondered if it's possible to know if it's in the pipeline.
I just asked Director Weil to be at the next school committee meeting, so you could tune in there.
Okay, all right. That's what I call a cliffhanger.
I'm just looking at my online counselors. Okay. I just want to say that, did you have something? No. Okay. I just wanted to say that I still get a thrill out of the fact that your department exists, and it was such a great time to be a counselor, to see not only kind of the birth of a department, but to see it was just completely grassroots. Mayor, you were pretty new, and to see how I remember jumping online to other communities and seeing how they structured their staff, and I did that with our residents, and this was completely, resident driven. Not to take credit away from the responsiveness from our city government, but it's still I still find it really captivating that we could pull it off, and I think it's a great model for, I'm sure now I think other communities are watching our videos to see how. So it's, thanks a lot, Director.
It's something I'm incredibly proud of, but it helps to have a remarkable partner as a director who I think took it far beyond what I had even imagined it could be for a department. So thank you, Director Weil.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, if we are done with CAPA, we'll say adieu to
Thank you very
Director Weil. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for your patience. Maybe I'll draw your names out of a hat next year, and you could go earlier. Bye. Councilors, I believe that we are done with the FY27 budget hearings. And so now we will, there's no votes, so we're just going to vote to adjourn, and then we have another meeting.
To close.
Yes, we have to close the hearing, and then we have to vote to adjourn. Yes. So first.
I would move to close the hearing then.
Second.
Sorry, so motion made by Councilor Perry, second by Councilor Clemmer to close the public hearing.
Okay. Councilor Dobbs.
Yes.
Councilor Clemmer.
Yes.
Councilor Loisel.
Yes.
Councilor Maori.
Yes.
Councilor Nabad.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Councilor Robbins.
Yes.
Councilor Stratton.
Yes.
And Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks to the staff and to the counselors for making it through our hearing. And okay. So now I would be looking for another motion.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
I'm going to, motion made by Councilor Loisel. I'm going to give to Councilor Nabad, because
As far away, it's the sound problem
Yeah.
thing.
Okay.
to adjourn.
For this?
All right. Councilor Clemmer.
Yes.
Councilor Loisel.
Yes.
Councilor Maori.
Yes.
Councilor Nabad.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Councilor Robbins.
Yes.
Councilor Stratton.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
And Councilor Dobbs.
Yes.
Okay. We are so adjourned.